I bet you guys missed us. I had a few messages going, where are you guys? Probably from those overseas. Chris Beecham.
We're allowed days off.
We are allowed days
I think, May days.
Yeah. How was your long holiday?
We went to the town of London yesterday.
Nice.
And we managed to catch the edge of the fly past as well. As we came out, we saw the fly past down the Mall. So we saw it because it comes over, not this building, but slightly further down. So we just saw the edge and the red arrows as they came through.
Nice, amazing. Hold that thought. We're just going to go to coming up. Let's get our trader friends across what is on the menu today. Chris.
Oh, 8 o'clock. It's us. You and me.
And lots of news. Palantir.
Oh, well, let's think you go away for a weekend, and there's loads of news over the weekend.
I know, and then a Fed ahead this week as well. That's the big one. 8:30, safe harbour.
Yes. Well, I've even skipped 8:20, so fast markets. But then, yeah.
That's because you're with me.
It's still me again. Sorry, at 8:30. Matt Arbor, the one, the only, the inimitable, which I've called him before, but it's still true.
He is the inimitable. We are trying still to get a website, which is Chris Beecham in his pennies.
So
Rich McDonald will be here for the All Sessions opening bell with you. And also, don't forget, we have a special treat for you. We've got a play out of Tasty Lives, Anthony Batista, otherwise known as the Bat, Part 1, to talk about what's been happening on the very, very lucrative options trading their side of things with all that volatility.
And then we have 9:40. Axel, of course, is back with Trade of the Week. We'll see what he has in store for us once again. And then, because his long DAX was last week's, wasn't it? Trade of the Week. So fantastic run there. And then, technically speaking, his Bonanza technical analysis follows swiftly after at 9:45.
Yeah, and it's a great day for doing that too, because the DAX is
record high.
Fire. It's on fire again, trader friends. Going to add that to my workspace for you to have a look at that. This is the daily chart. Look at that.
It's a storm. It's an absolute storm. It's incredible. It's as if nobody bothers about tariffs at all. They are irrelevant to the German index.
And we are seeing that potential breakout there. Yes, and I'm sure you will have many questions for Axel when he comes on board. Let's have a look at the chat to see who we've got here. Hello, good morning. Guten Morgen, Jesse14, Funky Gibbon, good morning to you as well. Gavin Ackers, your message is retracted. Why is that? Is that because you had a fat finger moment? Parky 1977, not seen you before. Good morning. Where is Monkey Man?
Maybe he had a longer holiday.
Oh, Monkey Man, I still have the bat in my bag. I will send it to you. It's been a crazy last few weeks, but you are on my list. I'm going to the post office after this. Gavin Ackers, good morning. Thoughts on Palantir earnings beat, and got my eye on Rightmove this week as well before earnings on Friday. Totally a technical standpoint. Until then, DFL3XRS. That sounds like a license plate.
It must mean something. It must mean something.
Were you caught in the rain watching the fly past?
No, we just missed the rain, actually. So didn't it rain just after?
Yes, just after.
Yeah, we missed it.
My son went up with a friend to a very high point near where we live to watch it. And
oh yes, because you can see it from there, can't you?
But they got rained on.
Oh.
And they didn't bring their, because of the nice weather, they didn't bring their wet weather gear.
No.
Yeah.
Well, it was a funny day, wasn't it? Because it was cloudy and then it rained and then it didn't rain again, and it's very, very odd.
Yeah.
Bank holiday weekend.
Yeah. I had a weird thing too where I went to an escape room.
Oh no. The very idea of it just makes me feel
what to think. Actually, as you know, the work that we do, it's quite cool because you can use like patterns. So I was useful when it's like, let's take a look at numbers, breaking the code, that sort of thing. What are the patterns? What patterns? I was totally useless when it came to some rooms had like strobe lights, dark lit spaces, neon lights.
Right.
And I realized that I would not be able to escape because I was like, what wellies? Do you see the wellies there? Oh, the hidden.
The people pay for this. You have to pay for this, don't you? It's a kind of entertainment.
Yes, and it's not cheap either.
No, you know you can just sit in the pub for much less cost. Well, not
less
much
stress.
less. Yeah, but less stress. I never understood escape rooms.
I was a skeptic at first, but it does I understand why companies do it now, the team building and stuff.
Don't give people ideas.
I'm serious, because it shows you that, you know, you need lots of different people to kind of get out of the room before everything sort of implodes.
It's too early in the week for a kind of a corporate messaging lesson.
I could not see to save my life. Everyone's like, oh, the keys hidden in the corner. What keys? Where? Which ones? Trader friends, if you've had a wonderful weekend, please bung it in the list here and let us know what you did. But at the moment, European stocks, let's have a look at the indices here. Looking like this and looking set. Let's have a look. DAX, of course, already moving there. But for the rest,
FTSE 100 not so excited.
No,
It's flat so far on the session. Just waiting to see how it pans out, really.
Yeah. And
although
also,
it too has done. It did too has done very, very well. We're back where we were on the 2nd of April from tariff. And now more than a month since Tariff Liberation Day. How quickly the month has gone and what we've seen over the course of that, but we are back to where we were, which even itself, I mean, compared with the DAX, it's not as impressive, but to get back there so quickly,
yeah, it is.
It is quite impressive. It's almost worrying. I think Axel will probably lean. I probably too lean towards that. It's more worrying than anything else because maybe the other shoe is left to drop, if you like. But
whereas we thought it dropped maybe in April, but
yeah, and then it was picked back up again, to extend the metaphor painfully. But yeah.
And so very quickly. I mean, it almost feels like the last 3 weeks were a distant memory now.
Yeah, it doesn't matter about the biggest upheaval to the global trading system since the Second World War.
So we have, speaking of upheaval, more upheaval from Trump, and you know, if that were possible.
It's constant revolution, isn't it?
It is
it's exhausting for everybody.
Yes. Shall we go to overnight action, people? Let's do it. Hey, welcome to Overnight Action with myself and Chris, where we take you through some of the key stories that you might have missed over the long holiday weekend here. Before we get to Palantir for Gavin Ackers, you know, this was all across the UK news. Trump considering the 100% tariffs on movies not made in the US.
It's very weird. Well, everything about tariffs is disjointed, but this is one of the US's key strengths is making films. But obviously, Lord of the Rings is a classic example. Where are you going to make that in Arizona? Because you need the scenery. Surely it doesn't make any sense.
Downton Abbey.
Yes. Where are you going to film that? Some awful pastiche building in California. I don't know. Again, it doesn't seem to make any sense in terms of the movie industry is dying a very fast death. Well, that I think would be news to most of Hollywood. It has its troubles, it has its problems. There was a good thing in the Wall Street Journal over the weekend about Marvel and how it's gone from Disney said, oh, you have to make loads of content to fill up our streaming services.
Yes,
now
because it's rubbish at the moment.
Well, no, this was before it was rubbish, and then it obviously became rubbish because if you mass produce it, the quality declines, and now they've been told don't make so much because it's rubbish. But the US is a giant of the film industry. So I don't know where he's got this from. It's another one of manifestations of his strange view about the global economy and the US's place in it.
Yeah, maybe after too much tanning lotion. But you're right. I mean, they're an absolute behemoth already. And also, if you speak to anyone who works in the industry, in the biz, yes, as Phil says, you'll find that actually all those people who are working in the sector who go over to the US because they export the marvels, they export, let's be clear here, they export that international diversity image, right? If it's Star Trek, you know, there's one of every ethnicity. If it's, you know, Avengers, it's one from every ethnicity. But once these actors go over there, they then realize that actually on the ground, it's a very different picture. And then what do? They come back all the way from Hollywood and they come back to the UK again, just because they're very diverse, different parts of the sector. You know, one does not replace the other. But this 100% tariffs, very confusing.
You're going to double the cost of cinema tickets in the US, so that will help an industry that's supposed to be dying. Yeah. Won't it, if you double the cost of attending?
Yeah, we already know that no one's really wanting to go out to the, you know, cinemas, and also every single subscription. I've just cancelled my Netflix.
Have you?
I have.
Wow.
Yeah, because it went.
See, everyone comes back to my position, which is not having Netflix in the first place, but.
Well, I was a late joiner because I didn't like our cinemas dying, so I before Christmas. I signed on $9.99.
Your valiant one-person campaign to keep the cinema going, right? Okay.
Yeah, and then it crept up to $17.99 very quickly, and I was like, no, I'm not having this.
Yeah, I don't think you can justify it really. I'd never been bothered by Netflix. I think we were piggybacking off somebody else's for a while, and they were using our Disney Plus.
I'm loving Aaron Bright, who apparently he had a friend who was using the ex-girlfriend's login.
Oh, really?
About 10 years after. Speaking of justification, Palantir.
Wow. Another storming performance. Though, again, this is the question of it got right back to where it was in terms of its share price performance.
Let's have a look at
it. It's a case of one of those earnings season ones of where it was enough, it was okay, but not enough to make the stock go up even further. Now, you might argue that, as with so much at the moment, it's gone up so much over the past 2-3 weeks from the lows of, 3 weeks ago. It's just ridiculous even saying it out loud, really. But we're up. This is Google Finance is correct. We're up 59% in a month for Palantir. So how do you top that? How do you come out and issue a forecast that is going to justify a 59% move? What isn't going to cause, say, profit taking on a 59% move? And again, profit taking is that thing that we say when we don't know exactly why it's moved.
Yes.
But I think it's fair to say if you've bought Palantir, you've been brave enough to step into Palantir on the lows, and well done. That's a good support line we've got there from January. A good defense of that line in April. So it's bounced, and it's a kind of the market saying, okay, well, what now?
Yeah.
We've given you a 60% price rise, but I don't think we want to hold onto the shares right now.
And this coming even as commercial revenue was up 70%, even as government revenues.
But this is Palantir. That's all a given. Double-digit percentage is just par for the course. It's not enough, is it?
Yes.
It's got to be something else.
It's got to be something else, and it's. I mean, Axel will be pleased to see as well. I drew that line on before the earnings, and you can see, down 9.
False breakout.
Yeah, false breakout, down 9.6%.
And the way the mind looks at it, you immediately think, oh, well, now it's going to go right back to where it was, which is not the case. The human mind tends to project what you think might happen next, but it's quite plausible that it continues to decline for another couple of weeks and then finds a higher low. So that's the key thing you'd be looking for, is the selling carries on for the time being, but where does it stop? And if it stops at a higher low, that would be normally in a normal world, in a non-tariff world, that would be taken as a positive view. I suppose the risk is that we've gone from panic to euphoria again in markets, and there's a question about what happens with the data. It starts showing a possible recession because of trade wars, and will that hit Palantir?
And also, those contracts, will they actually be signed and done? Because they are waiting on more contracts from the US government, but it has not been signed yet. $112 there at the moment. What do you think? I'm thinking it might move back down to that 100 level, and then if we breach that, then perhaps down to that support level, that blue support level that was last seen in January. And it almost touched, didn't it? Almost touched in April, but it didn't.
And of course, you'll have people screaming, this is a double top. Of course, this is the end of Palantir's huge rally, which, as a reminder, was trading at about, 20 2 years ago. And we've seen it surge in that time. Most of that surge coming since the election.
Yes.
As well. So it could go all the way back to, say, 10.9, and he still be very firmly in an uptrend. You could still be very firmly in a bull market for Palantir shares.
Do you buy any of those reports or the stories about them potentially, working with the builders of the Iron Dome? Trump's been talking about America's own Iron Dome.
Oh, the Golden Dome, isn't it?
Yes.
Because they can't possibly just have an Iron Dome. It's
No,
got to be a
yeah.
Golden Dome, yeah.
And there was a joke from my Canadian friends that it started at the Canadian border.
It probably does.
That's where they'll start building it. Ford, the other one that I was watching. What did you think of Ford? Because we had a series of not so positive numbers.
No.
But I was very, very interested in Ford because they were one of the few automakers that basically took advantage and did a lot of advertising ahead of the tariffs to try and get people in the US to buy their new cars before the tariffs came into play.
Just not doing very well, though, to say the least. And the $1.5 billion hit to operating profits. And of course, it's another one that goes in the withdrawing financial guidance column. So just people saying we have no idea. It's best for everyone if we don't make some kind of educated guess about where we'll be in 3 to 6 months' time, and it's best just to wait and see. So this is the sort of nagging problem about the economy at the moment. That, as we said a minute ago, the real bad news hasn't hit.
No.
We've had the tariff announcement. You've had the stories about companies redirecting flows. That was in the FT over the weekend, that the Chinese firms will be redirecting flows to avoid these tariffs. But the actual data isn't really showing up yet. You might argue with some credit card data over the weekend that it is beginning to be seen. But a lot of executives are warning, but the actual numbers, not there yet.
No.
And that's the problem for markets.
It's a guessing game, isn't it? I think CFOs, CEOs, they're just trying to be nimble, and it's changing from week to week.
Yeah, because if the tariff pause goes on, how far are we into our 90-day pause now? 20 days or so?
Yeah, isn't it July the 4th?
Yeah, oh joy, okay. Obviously. So we have time for deals or further announcements to come through that might mean that all this doesn't really take effect. But it might. But then again, the flip side view is that you've already broken the system. It just hasn't really shown up in the data yet, and that's when markets will really start to price in a much more worrisome outcome.
Yeah.
For the global economy.
Ford at around 992 there. Has to be said that Ford, and I have been to Ford Rouge in Michigan, seen the Tin Lizzie there. Both my uncles work for Ford. Still quite a punchy dividend yield there, 5.9%. So, which is why Ford is very well held in a lot of pension funds there. And also, if you look at the client sentiment, which I'm putting up for you right now on your IG platform, you can see that, in the last week, there have been 62% sales. This month, 53% sell. Today, 60% sales there. Ford, let's have a look at the chart now. Pretty much
This is a funny thing. It's up on the year. It's about 2.5% higher. Only if you look year to date. If you look further back, look how dire it's been as a performer. So clearly Ford has, and automakers generally have bigger problems than just tariffs. But if you've got a company that's struggling in this way and the share price is struggling, then the tariffs will simply be another thing that you don't need that is going to pile on the pressure. Yeah. One of the icons of the US economy, really.
Right, let's come off my chart and we are going to go on to Hims and Hers. This is one that Monkey Man looks at quite a bit. Hims and Hers coming out with a strong first quarter revenue. This is the company that provides all sorts of health, telehealth services, pills, and all manner of services for the obesity industry, and it has seen its shares fall in after hours after its weaker sales outlook for the second quarter.
And another mixed performance, but obviously we were down in after hours trading, but again, look at that, it's up 50% in a month. So it's another one of those where it's a question of saying, well, yes, it's really good performance, we're very pleased with it, but what now? What now? So often with these companies now, we're just getting this in earnings season. And I think this earnings season isn't the one to worry about. It's going to be the next.
Yes.
It's the next one when the numbers really, because everything in the last few months is okay, but that was pre-tariff world. Nobody really cares. It's not they don't care, but it is a different world. The impact has yet to be felt. And so you have the shares that have just had this huge rebound on the weekly, 4 weeks of gains. But where does it go from here? Where does it really go? And it's quadrupled since March of 2020, March last year. A fantastic performance by any means. Problem is, I suppose, that we just expect it to keep going.
Yes.
And if you'd seen it go up to 6, back in January.
Yeah, and the issue as well is, I was disappointed to see that move, because it has also entered the second phase. You hear about me talking about that quite a bit, trader friends, about the second phase, and it's when we get the Novo Nordisk's, Wegovy, and the peers, Ozempic, all becoming more mainstream. At the moment, it's still targeted at unless you've got money to burn and you want to really solve this issue, it's seen as still not accessible to the masses. Whereas him and hers, Monkey Man, I don't know whether you saw this, but look it up if you haven't. They have recently signed a deal with Novo Nordisk. And I believe the package is called NovoCare, and they're providing both Novo's products and theirs as well, bundling it with their health services, their teleservice. So the idea is with his and hers, you can subscription-based. Anytime you have an issue, anytime you look at a cupcake and you think, I really want to eat this, and you need to call someone and talk to someone really quickly, they offer that sort of service over there.
Pay for anything,
to come over here.
People pay for anything, won't they? So
it's an emergency. Thank you, Phil. That was the word I was looking for. Emergency helpline. Morning, away from the numbers. Forecast, Monkey Man says, looks questionable. Rich McDonald now dialing in. Morning, Rich. Hey. Andrew McKilvey also messaging early this morning. How are you, Andrew? Let's have a look, and we're going to go on to Clorox and some of the other big names before we head and talk about the macro news and the rest of the corporate news. But like and subscribe, people. Do like and subscribe. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button in order to get us a sponsorship for a new bell.
A new bell.
Yeah. London Stock Exchange, if you're watching this, I'm sure you are because I've had some of you message me. Do feel free to reach out to myself or Rich about this new bell. Also, you can message us or Rich and Chris any questions on ask@ig.com. Monkey Man says the partnership is good from a legal standpoint. Exactly. Monkey Man watches hims and hers. Right, let's move on to also we had Mattel. I know that's a big consumer brand, but Mattel also came out with numbers. Is this...
They still make dolls? Because this is the key thing with the president, is he keeps going about the fact that American girls won't be able to have 30 dolls, they had to have 2 or something.
I didn't hear that one.
There was in the cabinet meeting last week saying about the impact of tariffs and how maybe they won't have to have 30 dolls to play with, they'll have 2 dolls. And I think he said in an interview of the week, and this is the Republican president actively sort of promoting the idea of Americans having less stuff, which I'd never thought would be a vote winner in America, particularly. Yes. But this is clear the way it's going, and it says they're warning over tariff costs, they're expecting cost increases to come through.
Well, wasn't it said very early on that Trump, for all that he is, isn't that a song? He has managed to do 2 things that humans have not been able to do so far. One is bring everyone else together. At one point, I think China was talking to...
China, yes, was a statement yesterday. Yes, China, ASEAN, and Korea and Japan, countries that are not known for being very pally at the best of times.
Suddenly coming together to talk. And the other one was he might actually make people buy less stuff because of the tariffs pushing...
Yes, it's the biggest green president you've had, really. It's
prices up. Right, Mattel net lost at 40 million, and they are one of the companies that have actually come out with an expectation of tariff impact. So I believe the number is around $270 million in additional costs.
Which, again, it doesn't, for a company the size of Mattel, it doesn't sound, as ridiculous as they say, but it doesn't sound like much. But if you're dealing with a very competitive global marketplace where margins are crucial, this thing really starts to weigh on your bottom line. And that is a nightmare for executives. You might think, oh, they can absorb these costs, it's doable. No, it's not. It's not good at all.
And stay with us. On that note, we are going to come back after this break to talk about Uber, AMD, away from the numbers, asking about that. We'll talk about that next, and also some of the big economic details coming out. Of course, the opening bell.
Watch Trade Live with IG weekdays from 7:30 a.m. on our brand new YouTube channel at Trade Live with IG.
As well as the live show on our new YouTube, you will find our full beginner's course to trading options, daily YouTube shorts of all the action that happens after the show is finished, and Trade of the Week and Psychology of Markets.
And don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons for more exclusive trading content.
If you're looking for flexible ways to trade financial markets, whether you're experienced or new to trading, you've come to the right place. CFDs let you speculate on the price of financial instruments like shares, indices, forex, and commodities without actually owning them. You can benefit from both rising and falling prices across 17,000 markets, letting you find the perfect opportunity. So if you think the market's going up, you buy. If you think it's going to go down, you sell. When trading CFDs, you're trading on leverage. Now, leverage lets you trade bigger positions with less money up front. So this increases your profits on your trades, but also remember your losses are also amplified. So be sure to manage your risk. With us, you're not alone. You're part of a wide community of traders that you can learn from. We've got the experts, the tools, and extensive educational resources to help you on your journey. If you're not quite ready to trade CFDs with real money, you can always give it a go on a demo account. Open an account today, join the conversation, and be inspired to make moves.
Hey, welcome back to the opening bell with Rich and myself, and it is going to be quite an interesting open here, given we have already seen the DAX moving higher. Let's have a look at some of the upgrades and downgrades, Chris.
So we have from, trying to look at the list, what have we got? National Grid cut to neutral at Citi. I think that's the key one. I'm aware it's a downgrade, sorry, I should have downgrades first. What else have we got?
Porsche as well.
Oh yes, I saw Porsche was down this morning, cut down. So not much on the upgrade side, but UBS just upgraded, so that's interesting. Swiss banks and the Swiss National Bank cutting rates to below zero now as the next plan. I think they're in the reports I'm seeing. So.
Yeah. I think they might actually do it. I mean, what do you think?
I think so. I've thought that both the Swiss and the ECB will have to go negative again, which I think would be interesting.
Some interesting headlines this morning as well. HSBC plans 200 hires for its UK wealth business. This is according to Financial News. I wonder if that is after their latest Christmas restructuring. A lot of pals at HSBC saying some people just were told even not to come back after Christmas. Their holidays. Interesting there. Now they're going to now they're planning apparently reportedly to hire 200 for the wealth business. Novo, Banco, that's another one. Santander struck a €7 billion deal to sell stakes in its business in Poland as it cuts its exposure to retail banking in the country. That is according to the Financial Times. Lots of other news out of the banking industry as well. Have you seen the one from StanChart?
Profits, Q1 profits beat forecasts.
Yes.
Strong wealth business. Yeah. And again, Standard Chartered, very interesting because it's an Asian bank, but very solid performance generally, I think. Really, it has to be an uncertain time for the region as a whole. I think you're certainly worried that you're going to see a significant hit to economic growth across East Asia. So I think Standard Chartered would be immune to that, would you?
Yep. And also, I'd be quite worried if you've spent tons and tons of money trying to capture the, nouveau riche there in a time when, tariffs and lots of uncertainty are now coming into play. Right. We also have UniCredit, as Chris is getting the bell in readiness. UniCredit saying Italy unwilling to ease BPM conditions in risk to the UniCredit deal. And UBS raised to buy at DZ Bank as well. 3 seconds to go to the bell. 3, 2, 1.
It was very long, 3 seconds. I thought.
That was a very good. That was a very good hit of the bell.
I'm getting better at it.
Who is it? We had someone where the pen flew out of their hand at one point.
Bit of Jeremy Hunt.
Right, let's have a look. Right, we are off there, and you know, FTSE is climbing gradually, not by much, but it is heading further into the black there. Let's have a look. Right, let's have a look at a closer look at the individual movers there. Let's have a FTSE first.
What have we got? There
Right.
we go.
There we
BP right near the top. So that's the weekend story. This is the story, isn't it?
I know. Do you know I was at the escape room with several people from Shell?
There's a metaphor there, I'm sure.
Yes, and they didn't say anything. I mean, the Dutch are very, very private and very, you know, corporate when it comes to that sort of thing. But I did a lot of sort of like
They're
suggest.
not going to tell you, are they?
Well, you know, you never know. I mean, and we didn't go to the pub, so maybe that's why.
It's huge news. The idea that you might have Shell buying BP. I think I sent this to Rich on Sunday night. I saw it, and it came through that the two are considering. Well, certainly Shell is eyeing up BP, and this is what we said would happen. It was because BP is so cheap. The market is essentially saying about BP, the management can't get the job done. We don't think the current bunch are any good. We'd like somebody else, anybody, to come in and deal with it. And so if BP disappears, if it disappears off the FTSE 100, I mean, as a parable for UK business, it's quite something.
It is quite something. I mean, it is unheard of. Let's have a look at BAE Systems, also up 1% there. British American Tobacco up 1.5%. Let's have a look at the losers very quickly. M&S. Who is it that liked M&S? Was it Ronnie? Yeah, down 1% there. Anglos. Oh, Rich Anglos down 1.5% there. Was Rich long or short?
They had some news
I think
this
he
morning,
was
didn't they,
long
about
on Anglos.
possible, was it a fire at one of its sites and affecting a possible sale of the asset to somebody else, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also,
business.
also Peabody Energy saying those issues at Anglo's mine, I think in Moranbah, were not resolved. It is
That's it,
likely
yeah.
to elect to terminate its pending deal. Shell, interestingly, on that BP news, I mean, well, not interestingly, down.
Yeah, a little bit. And you have to wonder who else is going to start thinking about buying BP. If Shell have tipped their hand, somebody else is bound to be interested, I think. So you can see BP go higher from here, I think.
I can tell you that lots of people in Shell not exactly enthused by the
idea
report.
of, No, fettered to a corpse, probably. You really want to buy BP and it's stuck with it. I mean, it's not as if Shell is entirely free of its own problems.
No, they did hurl a lot of money at the whole renewables, you know, side of things. Let's have a look at Germany 40 now. So Germany 40, having a look at the winners list there. Chris.
Continental up 4.5%, very impressive. And then Rheinmetall, these defence stocks continue to motor, really, 1.5% on there as well. So a very solid performance there. And BMW and Mercedes both in the top movers as well, up around 1% each, really.
Did you hear the UK government is going to warn next week, warn all UK companies to treat cybersecurity as an absolute priority in the wake of attacks on retailers? I kind of thought, aren't we a bit late in the day?
Oh, once again, we've shut the stable door after the horses bolted and gone somewhere else. Yes, you had M&S and Harrods and somebody else at the Co-op as well last week.
Yeah,
Hit by,
right?
hit by cyber attacks. So yes, it's no surprise the government sort of stating the obvious, as if the Labour government doesn't have enough to worry about at the moment after the election results on Thursday. But certainly a lot to think about there.
Right, on the losers list, Germany 40 there, MTU top of the list, Siemens Energy down 1.6% as well. We talked about Porsche earlier on already, down almost 1%. Airbus down 0.5%. Any of those call out to you?
I think I saw Airbus. Is that downgraded as well this morning? I think I saw... No, upgraded. Same thing. Airbus, upgraded by Jefferies. I knew I'd seen it in the list somewhere. Upgraded by Jefferies, price target of €175. That was the other one this morning.
Okay, well, let's take a look at commodities now, because we have had oil prices rebounding earlier. Let's just see whether it's still the case. Yes.
Well, yes, rebounding in the loosest sense of the term after that massive gap lower on Sunday night because of the OPEC news.
Let's have a look at the daily there. Yeah.
Look at that. I mean, yes, it really overstretched the downside bit, and then the news comes out as we expected it would that OPEC is, well, not OPEC, Saudi Arabia has taken the decision to simply crush everybody else, doing that thing that everyone always thinks they expect them to do when the going gets tough in oil. Produce the stuff, damn everybody else, damn everybody else's margins, and be the last person standing. And that's exactly the way this is going. Then you've got US shale producers saying, we can't keep going at these levels.
Yeah, and fracking as well can't it's can't keep going at these levels.
This is not economic. So the idea of just allowing the US to massively produce oil, but there's no incentive. So Trump may end up destroying much of the US energy independence that they spent 10, 15 years constructing. That's so much effort. And so often his view of how this works is entirely at odds with actually how things should work. And again, not to come back to tariffs, it's like an escape room with tariffs. You just keep coming back to the same room over and over again.
Apparently they draw straws now when it comes to who wants to tell the president how this works. And they have to draw straws to it. Because can you imagine telling him, this isn't going to work? I mean, who's going to have the guts to
Well, yeah,
to
no,
do that?
you don't. That's the thing. You have to phrase it in a very clever way, because this is Besant's job at this point, is to be the sensible person. But he has to...
In the room.
Yeah, but he also has to sort of maintain his credibility with markets. And there was a thing last week, was Stephen Miller and the other advisor went to talk to hedge funds about tariffs and the impact. Apparently it did not go well. It was in a room full of people who know about markets. He just had to explain this to them. It was rapidly seen that he did not know what he was talking about, and it was not a pleasant experience.
Speaking of which, let's have a look elsewhere in the commodities space. Natural gas also up 2%. Their Brent crude, this is closely mirroring, of course, WTI, up 2% there after we saw gold prices also moving higher. Take a look at that, up almost 1% there, gold. It looks like we are heading back
on the up again for gold, yes,
in
unsurprisingly.
April.
That's just the way things are going, because it's still the uncertainty hedge more than anything else. That's exactly what you've got here.
Yeah.
Is the expectation that there'll be more volatility, so what do? You buy gold. It took an incredible run. As soon as it gets to 3,500, it's one of those moments of euphoria, too much news about gold and too much saying, oh, it's now going to go to 4,000 within a week or whatever. And now we've just had a bit of a pullback to 32. But even that is modest. And so that shows you the strength. It's one of those things that the price is telling you what to think. If the price has had a shallow pullback, there's still plenty of people who want to step in and buy. And that's exactly what you've got here. And so you could see gold, now we go back to 3,500, possibly higher.
And if we retest this is Trader Friends using the Elliott wave there, it's really hard to predict the completion of wave 5. I've written that handily to the left-hand side of my chart there, but we could see the testing of that resistance point, which I've tried to draw for you with that yellow line, so it's easier for you to spot 3,512 per ounce, and a break above this could trigger again to 3,561. But yet again, very hard to predict the completion of wave 5 here. Those of you that use Elliott wave. Copper. One of those that I spoke about last week a great deal, because copper was on its way down, if you remember, Trader Friends, and I said, look, keep an eye on the numbers coming out of Shanghai and also the warehouse data that was coming out. And let's have a look at copper and where we are at the moment, because it is now moving higher. This is the daily chart that I'm looking at there. Copper prices moving higher on signs, well, I say signs, but did you hear my rant on Friday on Twitter? It's like, is anyone talking to anyone? China says its door is open, that the US...
Yes.
Their door is also open, and we are going to tell them that our door is open, but you have to... It just went in circles.
And this is the problem, isn't it? That there's no progress. China says willing to talk, but you have to do something first. The US says, no, you have to come and talk to us first. And so the whole thing just begins to slip out of control.
Yes.
And this is the depressing element. There was a report that some Chinese officials had visited the White House.
But then there was also another report saying they hadn't gone because of the talks. So then it was still deadlock, right?
Someone suggested maybe there were just a couple of Chinese visitors that
randomly
Trump is
taking
convinced
photos.
were the Chinese representatives, and he's had a conversation with them. So yes, it's,
I read somewhere, I cannot yet, I have not had confirmation of this, but if anyone gets confirmation, please let me know. Apparently Palantir will not hire any Chinese person. I don't know whether this is true. I read somewhere, and friends of mine at Reuters, who I still speak to quite frequently, they're saying they've seen similar reports, but no one can
substantiate it.
Exactly.
But then I suppose it's a defense company. So if you are working so closely with the US Defense Department, you are therefore going to be under scrutiny. So maybe there's I don't know, we don't say something that's libelous, but if they don't hire them, they might give them the offer, but it's not approved because of the security implications. I would assume is the way this is going.
Right, let's have a quick look at, and this is for Just Documentaries. Hello, Just Documentaries. I don't think we've seen you here before. What do you do? Do you actually produce documentaries? And Just Documentaries saying Forexpo is down 7%. Thank you so much for the heads up. Let's have a look at the 5-minute chart here for you so that you can see. There we are. Look at that red candle over there. And also, let's have a look at what's behind this Forexpo.
Well, it had the minerals deal last week, so it was viewed as a positive for the company. But I worry whether the lack of any progress on actual peace talks is always beginning to weigh on the share price performance after a tough period, shall we say, for the company.
Just Documentaries, if you can tell us what's behind this move, because I can't see anything at the moment that is, clearly behind that move lower there. Do like and subscribe if you haven't just yet, because this is going to help us get that new bell, and also some other cool, funky gadgets for this studio. Let's have a look at the Forex market as well, because...
Yes, euro dollar this morning, because Spanish unemployment data has come out and expected to have a gain of improvement of 6,500, and its employment has dropped by 67,000. So not a great performance there. But euro relatively stable, which I suppose is more dollar weakness than anything else.
Certainly, yeah, the dollar baskets.
With obviously Fed this week. Before everyone forgets, Fed and BOE this week. So Fed Watch currently pricing in, well, we're not expecting a move, are we, on Wednesday or tomorrow? 96% chance of unchanged. But June's figure is now, June is also at unchanged at 70%. So that won't make the president happy, of course, because the more he talks about them cutting rates, the less they're going to do it, because it's...
JP's going to dig his heels in.
Well, you have to, because otherwise you cannot escape the accusation that you're doing it for political reasons, where it's just saying, no, we're not going to cut rates. And balance on the committee. This is also Trump's problem, that he said now he's not going to fire Powell, but even if he had done, the rest of the committee are practically in lockstep on that view. So the good things of the past 2 weeks have been, one, he's not going to fire Powell, and two, according to the weekend reports,
he's just going to keep calling him major loser, and then...
Yes, but he's also not going to run for a third term, so he appears to be willing to obey the Constitution, which is always nice, really.
Yeah, good thing, wouldn't it? Fed Watch tool, putting that up right now for you, because Issa and I were talking about this, and really the interesting point starts coming in the summer, when you start seeing a broadening out of rate, which way rates are going to go. And if you look out to even September and October, and this is because we're going to really start seeing that inflation reading come through from the summer onwards, because we're going to see last year's effect start to blip through. The Fed, though, for this coming meeting, still expected, I think I'm right in saying, mostly expected to keep rates unchanged, even though we've got these uncertainties.
Well, I think May was always going to be unchanged, but it was June that's the interesting thing. If you go to the June tab on that, you can see it nicely there that you've had this about face in terms of the probabilities, that the chances of a hike have surged, and the cut probability is the one in the middle there, or 25 basis point cut, have gone right down, and obviously no chance really at all of a 50 basis point move. And that's the lesson in central banking. 25 basis points tells you we're in control of this. This was expected. 50 basis points veers dramatically into, oh, something's broken territory. So.
Ahead of that, we've got obviously trade balance numbers. We've also got consumer credit panel, but of course all pales in comparison in a week when we've got the Fed meeting, and also the Bank of England.
Of course, we had payrolls on Friday as well. It feels like a long time ago, but we did have US payrolls on Friday, and that was another solid performance, 177,000. So again, it doesn't look like there's any major problem with the US economy. Maybe stagnation at the most worrying interpretation. But unemployment steady at 4.2%, and the wage numbers are fairly good as well.
Greatland Gold, Andrew McKelvey saying Greatland Gold is up 5.7% there. Quite a big move. Greatland Gold's not one I normally watch, but no surprise there, given what we've seen recently in terms of the gold price. Lots of people out there that I've been speaking to, like the CEO of Metals Daily and also Simon Popple, who we've had on the show before, saying that we haven't seen the end of this gold run yet by any stretch of the measure.
No.
And actually, on a longer term, much longer term, this is like a brand new Super Bowl cycle, is what they're describing this as.
Yeah, and last month's Bank of America Fund Manager survey said, oh, gold is now viewed as the most crowded trade. When you ask the fund managers what you think is the most crowded, and they said for the first time in years, I think it is, it's not tech stocks, it's gold. And people will take that as a view saying, oh, the move's already happened, that's it now, it's got to come off. No, if you look at sort of the history of the most crowded trade in these surveys, it goes on and on and on. So you're right to say this could just be the beginning. Really, for gold. It's got a bit crazy the last couple of months, but it shows no sign of slowing down.
Right, and on that note, no signs of slowing down. We're going to have fast markets after this, so stay right there, go and get coffee, but make sure you keep listening in because we are going to be back right after this.
Welcome to the exciting world of options trading. If you're looking to add a new dimension to your trading strategy, you're in the right place. Options trading offers unique benefits that can elevate your investing game. With options, you can protect your portfolio against market downturns, essentially creating an insurance policy for your investments. Now, what sets us apart is our commitment to your success. We provide extensive educational content to help you understand options trading inside and out. And with our 24-hour servicing, support is always just a call away. But that's not all. Options also allow you to generate income from your existing positions. Strategies like covered calls let you profit even when your stocks aren't making big moves. Options also shine when the market isn't following a clear direction, whether prices are rising, falling, or staying flat. There's always an option strategy you can use to potentially benefit. Now, we offer two ways to trade options: listed options for US shares, ETFs and futures, and over-the-counter options through spread bets and CFDs. Both types give you the ability to take various market positions. So, ready to explore the potential of options trading? Well, open an account today and take your first steps into this dynamic market. Remember, while options trading can be rewarding, it comes with risks. Always trade within your means and never risk more than you can afford to lose.
Tasty Live's godfather of options, Tom Sosnoff, is grabbing his passport and taking this show international. He'll be joined by IG's Rich McDonald in London and Milan, along with special guests at each stop for an evening of live trading. It's fun, challenging and moves as fast as the market. Doors open at 5, with trading starting at 6. Come early and have a pint or glass of vino with the boys. It's totally free, but space is limited. Register at tastylive.com/events. Options just got molto interessante.
AMD, yeah.
Hey, Welcome back to Fast Markets. Some of the big movers that we are watching at the moment. Of course, BP and Shell as well, but many others as well. Chris, do you want to kick us off?
Should we talk about AMD?
Yeah.
It's reporting after the bell today and lowering price targets. A lot of people are very cautious on this one because expecting obviously those tighter restrictions on US chip exports. So it's not a great sign, even if the AI spending has further to go. And this is this week's busy calendar.
It is very busy.
Well, it's busy of a sort of second, third rank, if I can put it that way, for a lot of these companies.
Yeah.
Coinbase, there's a name I don't really hear enough.
Well, we have the banks that kick off the party. Then we have like, you know,
But we're in that period now, I think, where
it's like the lull, and then we get Nvidia.
then we get Nvidia. Nobody cares, and there's Nvidia, and then it probably is the end of the season. But yes, AMD, probably the last of them for the time being.
Hey, we got Novo in the middle of the week. We got Uber as well. Monkey Man, I think, was asking about Uber. I'm very cross with Uber at the moment. I'm in the midst of a legal dispute with Uber because
Did they give you a less than 4-star rating for being a passenger?
no, I don't actually use them very much. I only use them for transport. But unbeknownst to myself, I had somehow or another, and the person said, "Oh, you're not the first, ma'am." Some lovely person in the Philippines somewhere. You're not the first, ma'am, to accidentally touch an Uber One subscription. So I've been charged $4.99 each month for something that I don't need. They say it's discounts for, you know, Uber Eats and stuff like that. I have never used Uber Eats in my life. And so I'm now disputing the $4.99 that they've been taking from me for about 11 months.
Okay.
Any of you have that problem, let me know. But
Maybe
Uber...
that's why Uber is up 40% so far this year and Lyft is flat. Maybe it's that kind of way of gouging the consumer without them even knowing.
Yeah. Uber, I think you heard me talk about it earlier this year, but the pair trade there is, you know, Uber doing well, or rather marginally better, and in that time, and Lyft was not doing as well, but maybe the pair trade has crossed right now. But having a look at Uber, it's really the gross bookings that will be also under the spotlight. It did very well in the last quarter, but it remains to be seen, especially with people having less in their pockets, whether gross bookings will...
Yeah, but again, it's a kind of one where they're not immediately feeling the impact. They might be worried about the next few months, but talking about the last 3 months, they probably remain fairly solid. So again, Uber up 40% so far this year compared to 2% for Lyft, which has only just eked into positive territory the last couple of days. So I think there's a clear sense that Uber's the leader there, and being the more diverse, you could argue that makes plenty of sense, really.
Yeah.
We should talk about Berkshire Hathaway, yes.
Yes, Berkshire Hathaway. Whoa.
Because it was down yesterday, and people saying, but we knew he was going to retire at some point.
Yes.
He's what, 96?
Oh, 96? I thought he was just like past the 90 mark.
No, I don't know. I will have to check as I talk. But this is why would this? Surely you realise this was coming at some point. The man
He's not
himself.
going to live forever.
He's 94, so there you
Who
go.
wants to live forever?
The question of can they sustain it? What happens now? Is it going to be as remotely as important? Because if he's not there doing the stuff in Nebraska talking about the company, who wants to go to hear Greg Abel talk? It's Buffett you go to. And that's it now. No more Buffett conferences.
No more
No more
stage
Charlie, no more Buffett.
Omaha.
No, exactly. The end has come. But yes, the Berkshires, I think it's a short-term weakness because you don't expect a massive step change because he's remaining on the board, isn't he? He's not entirely stepping down.
I mean, it's up 0.25%. But what I found really interesting too is the fact that he did not mince his words when it came to tariffs and Trump.
He doesn't have to, does he?
He can say whatever he wants.
Yeah, it's exactly what he thinks is the right way. And this is the view that you'd expect. It's the view that so many are taking, that the US has plenty of advantages, and insisting that we go back to manufacturing is not the way to cement those, really. And as you said, you have managed to tick off almost the rest of the world in your heavy-handed imposition of these tariffs.
Greg Abel.
Hopefully that's deliberate.
Yeah.
A nominative determinism there.
Yes. Apparently will succeed Buffett next year. I hope he likes being chased about, because really Buffett is chased about.
Yeah, but that's because he's Buffett. I don't care what Abel says. It's Buffett's just a folksy, cherry Coke, plays bridge every evening. That's the kind of thing you want.
Yes, and apparently Buffett also eats at the same steak joint every year when he
Yeah, and he shops. It's a very, very good. Again, The Snowball is the book to read if you've got a month spare. It's very, very
month.
thick. Well, it's a absolute doorstep of a book. I'll bring it in. If I could be bothered to lug it into work, I will.
Please lug it in. I'd like to read it. I haven't met Warren Buffett per se, but I have seen him from a distance, because I didn't want to go into the mob. It was insane. It was like some sort of rock star. Maybe he is the rock star. He is a rock star. Cash position for this rock star, some $189 billion is the reported figure.
Yes.
Apparently he trimmed his stake in Apple in the first quarter of 2025 to around 13%. So
one of his best ever investments, I think, on the.
Yeah, but he's also one of his best investments, but he's also known for, not going for the high growth, but going for value, right? And so
Yeah, well, it's not value as properly understood, I suppose, because he can obviously command such impressive conditions for investment, but he is that kind of, we want to buy at a fair price rather than a great price, I think was the idea. And it pays off so often, really.
Yeah. R. Saxana saying, hats off to Warren Buffett, answering so well for a long annual meeting. R. Sax, did you watch the whole thing? My goodness, hats off to you. DoorDash and Deliveroo deal also confirmed. Thank you very much for that. That was the next on our list, because Deliveroo is just downstairs from us.
Yes, well, their offices are in what used to be the old Life trading floor in this building.
Look at that.
Talk about being rescued from your own folly. But take it back to the monthly chart. Let's see where they listed. Let's see where they listed, because this is the thing we were saying, is that DoorDash have picked their moment beautifully, because Deliveroo is now back in profit, actually makes money, shock horror. If you bought into the IPO and the hype, you've had your fingers burned, to say the least. Terrible performance.
Yeah.
It's the classic case of always be careful with IPOs. You don't follow the hype. Treat them like any normal investment. Should you buy this, not just because it's Deliveroo and it's IPOing.
We need to run figures after to see whether this was worse or the Aston Martin Lagonda one.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Aston Martin Lagonda is still going and still sucking in shareholder cash, whereas these Deliveroo have decency to be taken over after it started to turn a profit. So, yes.
So a brief overview of Deliveroo. For those of you joining the show right now, they just agreed to a £2.9 billion pound acquisition by US rival DoorDash. Revenues £2.1 billion pounds, up 2% from around $2 billion in 2023, and profit of 2.9 billion pounds there. Interestingly enough, I do know that Deliveroo has been trying to expand into the grocery space, and also they've got this loyalty program as well, which I don't use, obviously.
I thought
just
you'd be
get fined
Deliveroo every day. I thought you'd be just Deliveroo every day, and you're not.
No, I hate these delivery sort of companies. And I think you were there with me last week when my dad got run down.
Oh, yes.
By a Grab driver on a moped. And so I think they are a hazard. I mean, there's a place for them, right? In the US, lots of people use them and stuff like that. But I kind of like to go to restaurants. I think there is please don't kill restaurants. Please don't kill cinemas. I'm a bit old school like that.
You really are the rear guard of this. I'm also hopeless causes.
Laughing at me. But there is a space for this because, obviously, it's about diversity. But I wouldn't want to see everything just delivery, DoorDash, Grab. Grab is way more. If you wanted to actually really invest in this space, I would highly recommend you look at Grab, because they are way more aggressive. And in fact, they killed off Uber Eats and Deliveroo in Southeast Asia because they were just so good at offering lots of different things. It knows your name, it knows what you normally eat and drink, and they offer it to you as they pick you up. So lots to be said there. Right, James Bennett, I do not own any Grab. In case you're asking, I do not caveat here. I do not own any Grab. I'm not advertising for them. No. None of this is financial advice. Thank you. What can go up can also
go down. Especially if you're a delivery company. Yeah.
James Bennett didn't help doing the IPO when the UK was coming out of lockdown.
Yeah, I think it fell victim to its own hype in many ways. But again, it's that case of, we should buy some Deliveroo. No, it's too expensive.
Yeah. Phil's starting to give me a passive-aggressive way of asking us to wrap up. How much time we got left, Phil? No time, he says. There's a lot of clapping going on there. Thank you very much. We have to leave it there. Chris, what's the rest of your day looking like?
Busy. Lots of stuff to write for this week. Fed, BOE, loads going on. Loads.
Right, and you can catch us on Twitter, or if you follow IG on Twitter as well, but also if you message us there, please do like and subscribe and send me your emails on ask@ig.com. Chris, have you subscribed?
Yes. Yes, because I've commented on the thing.
Oh, yes, that's good. Right, we will see you shortly after this. Rich is coming, so stay right there. He is going to join us after this.
Bring me the next shiny new thing. Bring me the next shiny new thing. Bring me the next shiny new thing. Bring me the next.
If you're looking for flexible ways to trade financial markets, whether you're experienced or new to trading, you've come to the right place. CFDs let you speculate on the price of financial instruments like shares, indices, forex, and commodities without actually owning them. You can benefit from both rising and falling prices across 17,000 markets, letting you find the perfect opportunity. So if you think the market's going up, you buy. If you think it's going to go down, you sell. When trading CFDs, you're trading on leverage. Now, leverage lets you trade bigger positions with less money up front. So this increases your profits on your trades, but also remember your losses are also amplified. So be sure to manage your risk. With us, you're not alone. You're part of a wide community of traders that you can learn from. We've got the experts, the tools, and extensive educational resources to help you on your journey. If you're not quite ready to trade CFDs with real money, you can always give it a go on a demo account. Open an account today, join the conversation, and be inspired to make moves.
Watch Trade Live with IG weekdays from 7:30 a.m. on our brand new YouTube channel at Trade Live with IG.
As well as the live show on our new YouTube, you will find our full beginner's course to trading options, daily YouTube shorts of all the action that happens after the show's finished, and Trade of the Week and Psychology of Markets.
And don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons for more exclusive trading content.
Hey, welcome back to the show. If you saw me doing this, it was because I was trying to explain to Matt what I was doing at the weekend and I was trying to espalier my apple trees. Welcome to the show.
Morning, Ange. Yeah.
Never a dull moment. Is that
Never
the right
a dull.
term?
I don't know. I don't know.
You train the trees to go that way, not that way. Espalier?
Yeah, my name might be Arbor, but trees are not my speciality.
Welcome to the show. Now, if I recall, it was you that talked about the BP Shell.
I did moot a BP Shell, and the FT stole my story. It's terrible.
You heard it here
Yeah,
first.
you heard it here first. Don't believe it, but there we go.
You heard it.
What does the market really? Pretty huge reaction this morning.
Yeah, and after you talked about it, I talked about it with Isar as well, because I thought, you know, there's bound to be other people who are going to join the party, right? Because, I mean, look at BP shares. Look at it. It's now.
It's a sorry state, isn't it? A small bump, I suppose. Price of oil was
356.
down, so any up move today is.
And then, you know, if you go out further, it looks even more painful. I mean, you know, it looks even more painful. Let's see, monthly now. Okay. I mean, and it's had.
It's a sorry tale.
It is sorry, and it has had restructuring after restructuring, and it has had countless org charts, countless new generals brought in, taken away, brought in, disappeared.
Well, yeah, but we live in hope.
Do you think there's going to be a US oil major that's going to jump in and put their hat in the ring?
Well, perhaps. I suppose the dollar's not quite as strong as it was, so it's not that as compelling. But it's possibly one of these where people are wait and leave to see if the share price gets any lower. It's still not trading that far below recent historical averages. So it looks cheap relatively, but it's this is a big company, and you've really got to be seeing the synergies. You've got a very good story if you're gonna very little overlap.
Yeah.
If you're gonna move for BP.
And that's right, because looking at my cursor there, we are in the same territory that we saw back in March 2022. But boy, if it's going to slip, it's got further to go, baby.
Well, I don't know. You can look at deep water as your chart. I'm not sure your chart is helpful there.
I'm just saying that if we have break, lower, there is, further to go. We're not anywhere near.
I was going to say it's interesting to look at that, because of those of you with long memories will remember that Deepwater Horizon happened over a UK bank holiday.
Did it?
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
Yeah,
I must have been
it was
away.
It was one of those interesting things.
Have you watched the movie? Apparently
No.
as well?
I was working at the time, and it was.
No, they've made a movie out of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I've been told it's apparently really, worthwhile watching. Harrowing, but worthwhile watching.
They'll make movies of anything, although not in the UK anymore, perhaps.
Yeah, not in the UK anymore. Did you hear us ranting about the whole Trump 100%?
I missed that. That's a random one, isn't it? Why are you putting tariffs?
There we are. That's for those of you joining right now. That is what Chris and I were ranting about earlier on. Going, it just doesn't make sense. Sounds like something else that he's just kind of spouted. And the US is already a giant, right, in the movie space, and they're now saying, considering 100% tariffs on movies not made in the US, how are they going to shoot something like Downton Abbey or something?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Studio somewhere.
Maybe he saw some French film at the weekend and thought, this is the future of cinema. I don't know.
Shedrick on the chat asking, safe harbour, do you think the UK government will let BP go to anyone other than Shell?
Well, that's a very interesting question.
National
yes.
security issue?
Well, with national security, the UK government's determined to get rid of oil. So, see it away. Someone else's problem. Someone else can pay 80% tax.
Also, never mind that as a security issue. I mean, our leaky pipes, and I think there was a brief moment after the Twin Tower attacks where the UK did a contingency planning. How safe are we? How prepared are we? And the outcome of that survey was that actually all the terrorists had to do was poison water, and because there are no security filters in place that could stop or detect any of the attacks in our drinking water, it'd be kind of like game over.
Well, I think that's the same as it ever was, isn't it? Let's not talk about global terrorists. But if there's a will, there's a way to do all these things. It's quite easy to do.
Monkey Man has amazing music and movie knowledge. He's saying Mark Wahlberg starred, I seem to recall. I can't remember the actors. Let's see. Mark Wahlberg.
Mark Wahlberg in Deep Water Horizon. I don't know.
Oh my goodness, you're right. You're right, Monkey Man. He is right. There we go. You guys, Monkey Man's memory. I mean, you have the memory of an elephant. Deepwater Horizon. And here is the image of Mark Wahlberg.
He can have his top off, I hope.
I haven't watched the movie, but I've been told it's well worth a watch. And producer Phil says it is. Kieran McKenzie says, I bet Total end up opening Total we'll end up owning them somehow. It's always France, isn't it? I love that knowledge.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure that the French coming in for UK companies.
No.
Obviously, you can't buy French companies, so they're always national champions, aren't they?
No.
No.
Yeah, no. If only producer Fred were here, he'd be Kieran McKinsey. He'd be rolling around, outside. Don't feel bad, producer Phil. We love you, and I know you're out there. I'm saying it to wind you up. Monkey Man showing a picture of an elephant there. Volatility.
Volatility. Where's it gone? People might say.
I know.
It's all remarkably calm out there. You say that. We still see Palantir dropping 10% last night on what looked like ostensibly very good numbers. So there is still volatility there at single name level through reporting season. But yeah, the headline volatility across indices has rather collapsed. It's all very benign, isn't it? What was it? Did I read the FTSE was on its longest winning streak for however long? A long time. I don't know, but it's pretty sustained up moves.
Yeah, and looking at the FTSE and looking at the DAX, you would have thought that 3 weeks ago didn't really even register.
Completely.
Look at it now. Look, this is the FTSE. We're looking at the weekly there, 9th of May, and look, it's down at the 14 handle. Let's have a look at...
So I suppose it's interesting, isn't it? It's this whole question, is the market once again sleepwalking into another shock? It doesn't... One assumes they're diminishing returns for every subsequent talk of increased tariffs or escalation in tariffs, given what we've seen, but it does feel like we could be sleepwalking into another sharp correction.
We thought several weeks ago that the shoe had dropped, but clearly not. Maybe it hasn't yet to drop really, because we've come back so quickly as well.
We have come back so quickly, and of course every time this happens, I suppose it's a case of buyers have a lot more confidence that they're not walking into something, an existential problem, that this is actually a complete change of sentiment, because history keeps on telling them that these are opportunities, and these are golden opportunities, and you don't even have to wait very long for the opportunity to become rewarding. It's that concept of over the past 3 weeks you could have made 20-25% on a lot of major names almost indiscriminately. It didn't have to be a great stock picker to hit anything.
Yeah, just close your eyes and...
Well, yeah. Well, I suppose it's an advert for passive investing, perhaps there.
Yeah, but we're not asking anyone to...
We're not asking anyone to stick pins in pieces of paper or throw darts or any of these things.
Do we sit back now and look, if you and I were pulling the Christmas cracker at the end of this year, what a picture.
What a picture.
And we look back at 2025, do you think we would look at, for example, the US 500 and think this was a year to buy the dip, to just take advantage of all the dips?
Well, I think one looks at it and says it was a buy the dip. Do we see double-digit percentage gains this year across the year? Probably not. And maybe that is the actual story, that what everyone's become used to of just holding passive US funds and returning 8% a year is perhaps not going to be the case now. That feels like the case, as Chris, I'm sure, will say. It could be the year the FTSE will come into its own and start being the market that outperforms.
Or we pull the crack and go, this is the year to put everything into the DAX.
I always, what kind of strange feeling would come over you that you thought that was the case? Of course, that would have been a very successful strategy, but I just never understand where the compelling reason is to go for Germany. There's so many structural problems there.
No.
Aside from the fact that the ECB always come riding to your rescue.
Yes, and always making sure that they the backstop, aren't they? Japanese yen rising a third straight session. We talked about oil earlier as well, and oil is riding higher, obviously from lows seen last week.
Well, yeah, but I suppose it's that's the case. And I often like to talk about the canaries in the currency markets and the yen appreciating against the backdrop of lower index volatility. I suppose there has been a decent bounce off those lows. If we look at that chart of dollar yen, rather mirrors the declines in the S&P, with perhaps we saw it leading with the dollar falling and the yen strengthening into the teeth of the sell-off. But dollar yen doesn't seem to have lost the volatility in the same way that indices have, and there is still more volatility around on those FX markets. So perhaps telling us a slightly different story to that being played out on indices.
Do you think that perhaps we might see this trend continue if Trump and Xi continue this standoff? My door's open if your door is open. Is anyone speaking? Chris and I laughed about this earlier, about apparently some officials thought, the Chinese are coming to talk, but actually maybe there were just some random Chinese tourists.
Of course the Chinese aren't coming to talk, are they? The Chinese are going to enjoy exposing Trump's arse of the deal for being, well, you're going to get a deal if we don't come to the table, and we're not going to come to the table. Yeah. It's
so sit there with their cars waiting.
Yeah, completely, and kind of hang him out to dry. I think that's, play the long game, as the Chinese like to often refer to, that they are the far thinkers out there at the moment who are prepared to play a longer game to get the winning strategy, as they so successfully did with rare earths. It's not like all the rare earths are in China. It's that the Chinese prepared to dig these things out the ground and to commit the money to doing what's dirty, horrible mining.
And plus they have the government structure to do so.
Yeah, but had the government support and the foresight, the longer planning to do so. I think I read an article over the weekend suggesting it's a similar thing with nuclear structure. Where remarkably the French are the model for long-term planning when it comes to nuclear energy, and built lots of reactors at the same time, and it's a scale business, and you get the experience from building more. Trying to build just a Sellafield on its own is fraught with difficulties. If you're trying to build 40 at the same time, remarkably, you're learning at each site as you do it, and it becomes incrementally much quicker and a much more efficient process. And this is the model that the Chinese have pursued, and are doing it, and remarkably end up with in a better state with a lot of these infrastructure policies. Perhaps it's things you can't get away with in Western Europe.
I didn't understand until I got an hour into the Greenland Investment Forum, which takes place in London once a year. And they all are really, really friendly once they realized that I wasn't from mainland China. I didn't realize why, because loads of people fly in, right? And they have it in really interesting places in London. Sometimes a hotel, sometimes they use the, I think it's a military, it's near Finsbury
I've got
Square.
no idea.
And lots of people
in Copenhagen or something.
Well, no, they come here because it's neutral ground, high liquidity. They want all the investors, and they're always looking for investors to dig up all the stuff, the rare earths and everything that is likely to be underground. But each time they have these conferences, the ones with the most firepower are the Chinese. And the only problem that after speaking to them a long time, because I was there reporting on the event and meeting all these wonderful people, that interestingly enough, they look like me, but their bone structure is a lot larger, if you think about it. And something about maybe I was trying to figure out later on whether they're not fat, they're just big. They look like, a giant version of me. Look it up, people, if you don't believe me. But the issue is, by signing a deal with the Chinese, who are happy to bring in all manner of expertise and everything, is that the crux of the matter is the Chinese will bring in their own people.
Yeah.
And Greenland's population, last time I checked, wasn't too big.
No.
And they will be dwarfed by the number of Chinese people there that will lead this project.
And signing any deal with the Chinese is fraught. I think it's like you watch any TV drama about the drugs trade. It's the signing deals with the Albanians and signing to get your drugs. No, Albanians. But in your world of trade, it comes with a lot of caveats if you sign a deal with
caveats.
the
But it does
Chinese.
too with the Americans.
Well, now it does, seemingly, yes.
Yeah, so it's an interesting space, and I like going to these places. That all of them happen here because of our immense liquidity pool. The Mongolian Investment Summit also happens here. European stocks, let's just get you across that whilst we have Safe Arbor with us. Interestingly enough, Greenland, a very high male unemployment and drinking issue there. Very high.
Well, I can believe that tends to be the case in much of the Arctic Circle.
So it's looking like we have seen the FTSE now tip
I was going to give you
into
some more interesting Greenland facts.
negative territory. Markets are more interesting because we're now tipping into the red there. Even the Germany 40, the DAX is now down 0.25%. What's happening there? We were up earlier as we were talking about, Germany going great guns. Axel later on is going to come and update his trade of the week. The DAX, any outlook there in terms of vol for this week?
No, as I said, vol has come off quite a lot, and markets are pricing and everything as fairly benign across the week. I suppose we got interest rate decisions this week, don't we?
Yeah.
God, we're not in Europe.
No, just Fed. No change expected there.
No change expected from the Fed, but obviously everyone will be looking at the comments.
Yep.
From JP.
JP. And we got Bank of England a day after, I believe.
Yep.
Taking a look at some of the key stories that we had earlier as well. We already spoke about BP and Shell. BP up 1.3% there. Shell was lower, almost 1%. You heard the story here first from Matt Arbour, ahead of the FT, might I add, down 1.3%. No surprise there. I'm surprised it's not down lower. It has fallen a bit more since the open.
I suppose it's just in line with the moves in oil over the last couple of days, isn't it? And opening over the, not open yesterday for bank holiday.
Speaking of oil, let's have a look at Oxy here, because Oxy was slammed quite recently, if you look there. And I was explaining to our trader friends last week about the triple top and triple bottom. Why does Ange keep talking about tops and bottoms? And I said that's a good. Phil said no comment. That's a good example there, because then we saw exhaustion there and it came right down. But it is slightly recovering.
I'm guessing there's another story there other than a triple top and a bottom on Occidental Petroleum for that move, Ange. I'm not going to denigrate all your technical analysis on air, but
Well, this was down to oil. I'm not saying that there is no connection to fundamentals. I use both, but I'm just saying that it's a good sort of heads up display. Do you use heads up display when you're driving?
No.
That would be why. That would be why. Hugo Boss. Let's have a look, because that one was also moving earlier. Hugo Boss. How much time have I got, Phil? 1 minute to go. Hugo Boss, they're up 6%. This is the daily chart there. Hugo Boss, this is the revenue beat. And so investors looking like they like that revenue beat there. So up 6%.
I'm wanting to dress like a German again. There we go.
I wasn't going to say that, but they do have that. What was it, the uniforms? Did they design them? I can't remember. Monkey Man, you got a good memory. Or is it them that designed the uniforms? Eric Jones saying made in China by the Taiwanese. What is that referring to?
iPhones? I don't know.
iPhones now will be swiftly manufacturing, all being moved to India.
Yeah.
Bigger Beers, good morning to you. Are you just back from your bank holiday? 70 MA7 Rat Racer. Can your handle get any longer? It says nice movie. Bad acting for deep water.
A lot of people seem to have watched Deep Wars.
I know, I haven't. My goodness, you guys have all this time. Andrew McCurvey say BP, not really British, it's quite American. This is true. It's quite Amoco, Atlantic, Richfield, and Castrol. There you are. And it's got big operations there. Let's have a look at one more, shall we? We haven't looked at Philips just yet. One more. Philips down almost 1% there after cutting its outlook. I'm not even going to try and say that first word over there. How's your Dutch?
My Dutch isn't great. I'm not even going to try a cod Dutch accent.
And one more.
Steve McLaren on the show. But,
Covestro down as well after cutting its full year earnings outlook. Right, and on that note, we have to wrap because Rich is coming up next with the all sessions to count you down to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ange.
Matt, it's always a pleasure having you on. What knowledge. Hugo Boss, Deepwater Horizon.
Still there.
Right, stay there. Rich is coming up next with the all sessions. We'll see you guys soon.
Tasty Live's godfather of options, Tom Sosnoff, is grabbing his passport and taking this show international. He'll be joined by IG's Rich McDonald in London and Milan, along with special guests at each stop for an evening of live trading. It's fun, challenging and moves as fast as the market. Doors open at 5, with trading starting at 6. Come early and have a pint or glass of vino with the boys. It's totally free, but space is limited. Register at tastylive.com/events. Options just got molto interessante.
Do you like the sound of tax-free trading? Well, that's exactly what spread betting enables you to do. This tax-free way of trading lets you speculate on the price of over 17,000 financial instruments, like shares, indices, forex, and commodities, without actually owning them. With spread betting, you can benefit from both rising and falling prices, letting you find the perfect opportunity. So if you think the market's going up, you buy. If you think it's going down, then you can sell short. Not only is spread betting exempt from capital gains tax, but it's also commission free. All you pay is the spread. With us, you're not alone. You're part of a wide community of traders that you can learn from. We've got the experts, the tools, and extensive educational resources to help you on your journey. If you're not quite ready to trade with real money, you can always give it a go on a demo account. Open an account today, join the conversation, and be inspired to make moves.
Watch Trade Live with IG weekdays from 7:30 a.m. on our brand new YouTube channel at Trade Live with IG.
As well as the live show on our new YouTube, you will find our full beginner's course to trading options, daily YouTube shorts of all the action that happens after the show's finished, and Trade of the Week and Psychology of Markets.
And don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons for more exclusive trading content.
Tasty Live's godfather of options, Tom Sosnoff, is grabbing his passport and taking this show international. He'll be joined by IG's Rich McDonald in London and Milan, along with special guests at each stop for an evening of live trading. It's fun, challenging and moves as fast as the market. Doors open at 5, with trading starting at 6. Come early and have a pint or glass of vino with the boys. It's totally free, but space is limited. Register at tastylive.com/events. Options just got molto interessante.
Hello and welcome back to the opening bell for the all session. So we got Palantir to look at. What else you got your eye on? Netflix?
Netflix, we got Ford, we have also overnight looking at Hims and Hers as well, just in case, for Monkey Man, who has, I have to say, the best memory I know of any person. Talked about Deepwater, the movie. He's clearly watched it and said, oh, Mark Wahlberg's in it.
Did you watch anything for VE Day yesterday?
No, because I was still, truth be told, I was still recovering from Escape Room.
Oh, yes, of course. Oh, my goodness.
I told you about it before I went, right? I was like, I have no idea what I'm signing myself up for. Yeah. It wasn't my idea. I did go with a friend from Shell. There's a gaming, real like serious gaming community
Right.
at Shell. Not just board gaming, but gaming and escape room type thing.
It was hectic.
It was mental. I mean, we're locked in. I don't like being locked in general. The Rich knows that I have astigmatism, so dark places or ambient lighting. I was like, you know, and there's like, strobe lights. Oh,
Grab the bell. Go on. Right. We've got Bigger Bias. I don't think you're going to get Palantir flat. There it is, down 9.2% to kick us off. So Palantir, just for a stat there, if you're wondering why Palantir is down 9%, that is 6 times its annual projected revenues that it is lost in market cap. And that's because it was trading at 73 times revenue. So, you know, that's why you're getting a big move there, because stocks on 73 times their revenues, you know, they, even if they come out with great numbers, then you're going to see that kind of move.
and we talked about this earlier as well. Its shares have been on such a good run, right?
60% in a month.
And yeah, and the thing is, it cannot continue this forever unless it comes up with something like super impressive.
Yeah.
In which case it didn't. And so now we're seeing the ramifications of that play out. But yeah, hims and hers.
Yeah, let's get that back up there. Let's get
down as well.
see if there's any winners. No, it's a bit of a down day, isn't it? So you've got Eli Lilly up, small Chevron, but it is on the downside, with the futures down 50 basis points. Oh, there's your Uber down 1.8% because they're stealing from you.
Yeah, $4.99 a month for the last 12 months. I am currently locked in dispute with them. Let's have a look at Ford as well, because we had Ford all sessions down almost 2% there after its earnings as well, and its numbers disappointed. I think it said something about tariffs as well. Gave some guidance on that. Maintained its full year EBIT though, but it is not a happy bunny, given that it said that tariffs are underway. And these numbers coming after Ford. Did you know this? They were ahead of the game, ahead of GM and everyone else, saying, please front load, buy your cars now before these tariffs.
Yeah.
But yet it hasn't helped its results as much.
Oof. So overall, we're trading now at 5,624 on the S&P 500. Let's look at where that sits in my matrix. This is my favorite thing for the whole year. You're going to be get used to this, people. So, you know, at the moment, we are above the current estimate of $266. We've had a couple of beats in there for tech, so that's understandable. Maybe it's, you can edge up to a kind of 268. But we're looking at 21 times earnings, and that needs 3 or 4 rate cuts in there. And we just, not sure if we're going to even get 3 by the looks of it. But Wednesday, tomorrow night.
Tomorrow.
Of course, it's not Monday today.
Yeah, because we've had that bank holiday. So depending on what JP says.
Yeah, it's going to be a really interesting press conference. A few people I've spoken to actually thinks that he will cut, which will be a huge shock.
That will be a shock. Is what, tomorrow?
Tomorrow. Oh. I cannot see it, but some smart people think that he might do it because he knows he has to do it, and so it'll almost be a triple bluff that he just cuts, and they'll come up with enough reasons to warrant it.
Well, if he does cut, I think I drew this with you the last time we were on. My yellow number there, we took a look at expectations for where the US 500 might end the year. And after talking it through with you, I was thinking maybe 5950 is where I'm looking. But obviously that will be revised if we see a surprise tomorrow. Just looking out for this. I mean, he's expected to push back against all these rate cut calls. JP is. So it's going to be a real shocker if they do anything.
Yeah. But, I mean...
I think more July to December is when we might see these cuts, because then we see that inflation figure really start to hurt, right?
I think June's pretty nailed on. Because I think by June, you're going to start to see the jobs numbers come through. Jobs numbers Friday was, really impressive at 170. But I think that you do start to get hits in transportation, in shipping, and yeah, there we go. So what are we at?
So this is the view for June, and we head out to July, and then, you know, it gets broader. Let's say December. Let's have a look at December there. Look.
Yeah, that's complete unknown, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like one of producer Phil's poll results.
What he says at the end, what is it? You always like to write other.
Yeah, basically other or only time will tell.
Only time will tell. He is a diplomat, after all.
Right, now talking about diplomats, we have a wonderful interview coming up. And no, I'm not talking about Piers. I noticed Eric Jones was shouting out, "Where is Piers this morning?" He will be back. Not sure if we're going to let him into the studio on Wednesday or Thursday. I think maybe Thursday would be better after we get the Fed. But now we have a wonderful interview that I had the pleasure of doing with Tony Battista.
The bat.
Now you've met the Bat in person, haven't you?
I have.
Take us through what the Bat is like.
He is absolutely fantastic, and gave me a quick run through when I was absolutely new, like I knew less than nothing about options, and really took me under his wing, pardon the pun.
Yeah.
But he is also a really, really genuinely kind man. He looks small in that picture, but actually he towers over you.
Is he a big?
He's really,
Big un.
really, yeah. And you can see how, you know, he and Tom, you know, really sort of work the floor, because you have to be very tall, right, in those days to be in the pits to, you know, get your...
Be a big advantage, wouldn't
Yeah, and Tom also wore these things that, they're not high heels, they're just shoes, men's shoes that have like clogs at the bottom. And I went to visit the SIBO where Bat worked.
Well, and you are about to hear all about it, right? Now, this interview was meant to be half an hour. We chatted for over 50 minutes. So we've had to break the interview into two. So today you're getting part one, but this is all ahead of both Sosnoff and Battista coming to London on Friday, the 20th of June. You can come along for free. So just go to the link that producer Phil is going to pop into the chat room, and then go to sign up. And you can see here, you get your tasty ticket for absolutely free. And yeah, just go to the register button there. So
do that right now, because the tickets do get you know, sold out really quickly.
That's
We
right.
saw the last time. Do come, because it'd be nice to see you guys there. Arsax, lovely seeing you there the last time. I will be there on hand to meet and greet all of you as well. And I'll be helping James Rutter with they're going to have iPads showing the platform.
nice.
Around there, and I'll be giggling as they throw hard, you know, fast and furious trades at Rich.
Yeah.
Make sure there's light this time, because the last time it was quite dark, wasn't it?
It was mysterious. So that's right, my credit card is going to be behind the bar. So you are all invited, and you're all invited to have some drinks on me as well, because of course I said one day, if we get the tariff announcement today and this market goes to 5,400 today, up 9% it was, then I'll buy the round.
They serve champagne behind the bar.
Up it went. Right, so yeah, sign up, and here he is, myself and Anthony Battista. A wonderful interview. There are some great stories there, starting off with one from 1987. Like and subscribe, and then we'll get you on to that interview. We'll see you after it.
Tasty Live's godfather of options, Tom Sosnoff, is grabbing his passport and taking this show international. He'll be joined by IG's Rich McDonald in London and Milan, along with special guests at each stop for an evening of live trading. It's fun, challenging, and moves as fast as the market. Doors open at 5, with trading starting at 6. Come early and have a pint or glass of vino with the boys. It's totally free, but space is limited. Register at tastylive.com/events. Options just got molto interessante.
So my guest today is Anthony Battista, better known as the Bat, a veteran trader, with over 40 years in the markets. In fact, rumour has it he was responsible for starting the 1987 crash within weeks of starting on the floor. He now co-pilots Tasty Live alongside Tom Sosnoff, although we're unsure which one's Maverick and which one is the Goose. He's one of the sharpest, wittiest and kindest minds in options trading. He is the legend that is the Bat. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
Right.
Nobody's ever introduced me like that, by the way. You're the first one to ever introduce me like that. I got to correct you a little bit. I did start trading in 1983, about 3 or 4 years before the 87 crash. So it took me a couple of years before I could actually mend. I do have a funny story about that. I bought my seat on the floor of the exchange the day of the crash.
No.
So I had, yeah. So you had to, I started trading with $5,000 in my account in 1983. You
Okay.
can't do that anymore, any place. I mean, it's just, it was a low entry. I had somebody else who gave a promissory note to the clearing firm.
Okay.
It would almost be like somebody wrote a piece of paper to IG and said, hey, whatever Rich does wrong above and beyond the amount of money he has in account, I'll make it good. So that gentleman's name was...
Got his back.
Yeah, I've got his back, exactly. That gentleman's name was Kenny Weiss, and he didn't take any money from me to do that. It was just a kind of a courtesy thing to do. He was a trader also, and just kind of paying it forward to me, which was kind of cool. But I started trading with $5,000 in my account in 1983. By about a month before the crash, I had $130,000 that I could use to buy a seat. Yeah,
And
I was pretty good.
You'd built that up over 4 years of trading to 130.
That's 130 that I could spend. I still had to have money in my account. You know,
Yeah.
when you buy a seat on the exchange, you had to put up 50% of the value of the seat, and then the clearing corporation would give you a loan for the other 50%, almost like buying a house. You're putting 50% down, and somebody else gives you at an interest rate gives you another 50%.
Okay.
So I had $130,000, so I kept raising my seat price to $260 because that would be 50%. I'm putting up 130. The seats were trading around $360,000 at that time, the day before the crash. But I just kept putting my bid in. I just tried to get a little bit more competitive as best I could as I made money, because I always wanted a Batista to be on the floor of the CBOE and trading, Well, long story short, the crash came, and I traded the whole day during the crash. We were worried that, money in banks was no good anymore. We were all going to go to the barter system. There was going to be no more trading. It was some scary times, and imagine what it's evolved into now in 2025, how much it's grown. But we thought the business was over.
Yeah.
And I remembered I put this bid in for the seat. So I woke up early in the morning. I got to work at like 4:30 in the morning.
It was a Monday, wasn't it? Is that right?
It was, yeah. And I sat outside the office. The door was locked, and I sat on the floor, and I went through all my trades that I was doing, because I wanted to cancel my seat bid, because I didn't want, it was all the money I had in the world. I didn't want to, things going, there is going to be no more CBOE. There is going to be no more trading or anything like that. And a young lady comes, and she walks over me. She opens the door, and I go in with her, and I say, I'd like to cancel my bid for my seat. She goes, okay, great. And she goes, oh, you bought one last night. I was like,
filled.
I was like, how could that happen? Like, I'm here, the door's closed. You must have bought it last night. You're liable and you're obligated. Well, the seat traded that week down to about $250,000.
Okay.
And in a month, it was $360,000 on its way to a couple $1 million. So
wow.
Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, or you just have to be in it to win it. You know what I mean? Like, don't think, just react.
This is fantastic. And then, so you're on the floor then, and Scotty Sheridan's there, JJ's there, Saws.
Yeah.
Take us what does the position look like? How's it set up?
So there were about, I never really counted, but let's just say there was 1,500 guys and gals trading in the pit. There weren't very many women, maybe a handful, call them under a dozen, closer to 6 probably on a full-time basis. And it was like, I think JJ actually said this once, it was like college with money. I mean, I started trading when I was 21 years old. Now I'm 26, 27 years old. And, you're making more money than you deserve. You're losing more money than you deserve each day. I only traded my own money. So if I made money that day, I got to keep it. If I lost money that day, I had to give it back. I never had any customers or anything like that. I was the market maker. If you were, like today on Tasty Trade or on IG platform, you get filled. That would have been me back in the day, filling you. Like I wasn't the broker representing you.
Right.
I was the other person taking the opposite side of your trade. So I had JJ to my left. He stood on my side. So it was a big pit, you know what I mean? Like, and a bunch of stairs coming down, almost like a inverted cone thing. I stood near the top because cream rises to the top. JJ stood to my left. Tom Sodnoff was all the way across the pit with Scott Sheridan. So we were actually on opposite sides of the pit.
Yeah.
And we didn't know each other at that time, but we all met each other playing softball pretty much. JJ I actually knew before Tom, because I think JJ started a little bit months after me. And I had an office and he needed an office to hang his coat and stuff like that.
Okay.
So I said, hey, you can use my office. Well, what do I care? And we shared an office for a while. Yeah.
God, fantastic. But take us a step back from there. What about BAT at school? What were your aspirations? Was this in Chicago? Where did you grow up, BAT?
I grew up in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn. I lived there my entire life. In Brooklyn, if your father's a bricklayer, you become a bricklayer. If your father's a doctor, you become a doctor. If your father's a hoodlum, you become a hoodlum. My father wasn't a bricklayer or a doctor. So for me, when I turned about 18 years old or so, I decided to take my mom's Dodge Diplomat. It was her only car. And then she took the bus subsequently to go to work from then. Yeah. And I drove to Chicago and got a job at the CBOE because I had a cousin who was like a floor manager. He was able to get me a job. I was in Brooklyn at the time. I'm going back to like 1980. I was selling Jordache and Sassoon jeans. Do you remember those? You probably remember those. You were on that dating game. You probably remember Jordache.
Yeah, I was probably wearing a pair.
Probably wearing a pair is right. I was selling them 2 for $25 out of the trunk of my car, and when they were $50 a piece. Okay. Back in the day, jeans weren't a couple $100 as they are today. They were like $50 a piece, and that was a lot of money. Yeah. But I would get them slightly warm from the docks in Brooklyn, a section called Red Hook, and I would sell them from my trunk of my car too. I was making about $600 a week. Okay. Cash money selling these jeans, and I was driving car service, which is like Uber before Uber.
Oh wow! But what's coming across is you were a trader at heart. You were a trader in the head from the off.
I was a mud cat. I was just an alley cat. I was trying to make a buck wherever I could. I was a good student in school. Right. I never wanted to disappoint my mom. My dad, like I told you, wasn't around too much. He came and went a couple of times. He did a couple of years in college when he shouldn't have. He was too old for college, but he went. He liked it so much he went twice. So I didn't want to disappoint my mom. So I was a real good student. And then when I left home, I'm an only child. Yeah. When I left home, she was real disappointed. But I drove to Chicago. My cousin got me a job. I was making $600 a month. I was making $600 a week in Brooklyn. Yeah. He got me a job for $600 a month in Chicago. But it was a legitimate job, and it had upside. And my smartest thing I ever did when I could not trade, because you have to be 21 to trade, and I was 18 at the time. You got to remember, there was no email back then. There were no microwaves. There was no fax machines were like, $20 to send a fax. It was really kind of crazy. So all the traders, all the independent traders on the floor would get these things called sheets where all of the trades that they had made would be on this big piece of paper.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember, they had like holes on the sides of them, and they would fold almost like a big, like it was just a big, like, I don't know what you would call it, but they were these, we called them sheets. They were these big sheets, and all the trades, you gotta remember, you're making 1,000 trades a day.
Yeah.
Legitimate 1,000 trades a day. And, you know, some of the prices get messed up. Some of the Oprah codes get messed up. And you would have to go through them on these sheets. Well, the traders would come down on Saturday and Sunday. I noticed them coming down on Saturday and Sunday to get these sheets so that they can go home and look at them at their leisure in their houses.
Okay.
So I said, crap, why don't I come Saturday morning early? I'll charge you $10 if you live in the city of Chicago. I'll charge you $20 if you live in the suburbs. I'll get your sheets by Saturday before noon.
Wow.
And I had every trader, pretty much every trader in my firm, it was a small firm called Brandt Associates, sign up for it. And I was making $600 a month as a runner on the floor of the Chicago Board Options Exchange. And I was making myself, you know, again, you know, $700-800 on the weekend delivering these sheets. But that wasn't the great. The best part about it, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Rich.
No, I was going to say you built up the relationships then.
That's exactly right. It wasn't the money I was making, which I needed. Believe me, I was eating Spam at the time. But it wasn't just the money that helped. I would meet these people, and they would invite me into their houses.
Wow.
And they were huge houses. And, you know, and then I would see them on the floor, and then they'd say, hey, Bat, you know, they called me Bat at the time. They would say, hey, Tony, you want to get lunch? You know, you fly, you know, I'll buy. And I would go get them lunch, and I would eat with them and pick their brain and talk to them. And, you know, a couple of them, like this guy, Kenny Weiss, liked me. And then he let me, you know, stay in his office. And then he taught me how he traded. And it was...
The modern version of that is offering to go and get people coffees, right? I used to walk back Canary Wharf, you know, from First Boston with 8 or 9 coffees if I could balance one on top, and hand them around the floor. And hey, do you mind if I come and sit with you for 20 minutes? Yeah, sure. And that was it. You know.
Yeah, you got to get your foot in the door somehow.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was the smartest thing I did, and I didn't even know I was doing it.
Now, let's fast forward to modern day, right? You've sat through what, tens of thousands of trades, hundreds of episodes of the show. What's the kind of the back routine in the morning, or the daily routine that keeps you turning up every day with that big warm smile and stops you killing Sosnoff?
We start the show at 7. I get here an hour early because I drive in. It's about a 30-minute drive. So I leave my house at 5:30 to get here at 6, but we don't start till 7. But, you know, sometimes there's traffic, or you get a flat or whatever, you know, you got to be on time. So I get here early. I always got to work early, even when I was a trader. I get to work a couple hours early. I want to have the right mindset. Yeah. But more importantly, I'm very regular. The team here, the production team, makes fun of me because between 6:25 and 6:35, I am in the washroom. So for me, a bathroom break before the show is what keeps me smiling, to answer your question. But we take no breaks from 7 till 10. So you know, you're sitting there for 3 hours. Yeah. And I drink a lot of coffee in between the shows, and during the show, you always see me with my coffee cup. So the bathroom break at 6:30 keeps me happy. That's really what you need.
But what is it inside that keeps you coming back day after day and enjoying it? It's so obvious that you guys enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, I'm not one to say blessed very often, but I am blessed to work with, you know, one of my better friends of 40 some odd years. I get to work with my son, which is an absolute blessing too. I mean, you know, I told you the first story. I always thought that I would have a Batista on the floor of the CBOE because I wanted to work with my son, and now I get to work with my son. So it came to fruition, but it wasn't the way I planned. You know what I mean? But
Nicky,
working with my best friend.
Nicky did drop me a question. Actually, he said, you know, does it give you pride or jealousy when you realize that your son's a better trader than you were?
Well, I'm a competitive MFer, so
You
I'm gonna
don't
let him
say.
win this one. I'm gonna let him win this one and say it's pride to watch my son following, different but still following in my footsteps. Same type of career. It's very rewarding. It's very rewarding.
Yeah.
And I owe that to Tom. You know, I owe that to Tom. If he didn't build a business, I wouldn't have been able to do that. So I'm grateful for that. I'm a fairly loyal person.
Let's say you
Although
were.
my first wife would say absolutely different than that, but I am a loyal person.
I love it. It's turning into a therapy session.
That's the truth.
So you know, Nicky, you've done wonders with. What if you were going to teach any other 18-year-old
He was a
kid
sponge.
out there? You know,
Yeah, he was a sponge. You know, not everybody's built for this.
Yeah.
You know, I stood next to brilliant people, mathematicians, writers, doctors, lawyers, other hoodlums.
Yeah.
Not everybody's made up for the pressure of trading, and not everybody wants to take the time to learn about it too. And then engineers, oh my God, I can't tell you how many engineers that I've traded with that didn't make it, and they're brilliant people, and they understand the math a lot better than I do. They just get too into the minutia of it. Like, you know, they want to know why that option is priced at $1.50 as opposed to what's the strategy going to do? Do I have the right strategy on for my assumption? They got stuck down the rabbit hole. Listen, go ahead.
And remembering it's a market, so sometimes they don't get the dynamic of the market right, and that's somebody who has your experience. How do you tie that up with the modern edge? You know, these zero DTEs, all the algorithms. You know, you've got the grit, you've got the street smart, and you've got that market feel. How do you stay ahead of the new modern edge?
Respect. So you have to respect the market, because the market will slap you. The market doesn't care how much money you have. It doesn't care what your position is. It doesn't care what your assumption is. It doesn't care about anything. So you have to have respect for the market. And you know, you learn that. You know, we just learned that not too long ago. You know, a couple of weeks ago.
Yes, we did.
The market sold off, and you know, you learn it every 4 or 5 years. You know, the market takes a dive of 20% or something like that, maybe a little bit more. And everybody always thinks it's never going to happen this time, or it's not going to happen today, or man, respect. You have to respect the market, and the only way you can respect the market is watch your size.
Yeah.
Trading a little smaller relative to your account. You know, one investor's floor is another investor's ceiling. One investor's risk is another investor's, you know, purgatory. So keep it small relative, and you can pretty much survive anything. That's really what it comes down to. I mean, when I was undercapitalized, when I first started trading, at the end of the day, I got flat. Like, if you only have $5,000 in your account, you can't afford to lose money, not even one day. So at the end of the day, I would get flat. And if it cost me money to get flat, I got flat because I had the most. An old trader told me this one time, and it's so easy a saying, but it was the greatest saying. You trade for tomorrow. Like, you don't trade for today. If you could stay in the market and stay disciplined, keeping your size right, respecting the market, you're going to be successful. At least I believe you will over time. But you got to trade for tomorrow. Too many people trade for today.
I
they
love
trade what's
that.
going on right now today.
Because so many times
It's not mine. Somebody else said it.
Oh,
I
it's
just
yours
stole
now.
it.
It's yours to everybody watching this in London. So many times I traded all day, and I battled and battled and battled to get the best P&L possible that day, but that wouldn't necessarily leave me with the right position overnight. Anything can hit the headlines the next morning, and I would suddenly, the work that I'd done the previous afternoon was tiny compared with what I'm sitting in the next morning. I like that. I'm going to remember that one.
Tasty Live's godfather of options,
you
Tom
guys
Sosnoff, is grabbing his passport and taking this show international. He'll be joined by IG's Rich McDonald in London and Milan, along with special guests at each stop for an evening of live trading. It's fun, challenging and moves as fast as the market. Doors open at 5 with trading starting at 6. Come early and have a pint or glass of vino with the boys. It's totally free, but space is limited. Register at tastylive.com/events. Options just got molto interessante.
Do you like the sound of tax-free trading? Well, that's exactly what spread betting enables you to do. This tax-free way of trading lets you speculate on the price of over 17,000 financial instruments, like shares, indices, forex, and commodities, without actually owning them. With spread betting, you can benefit from both rising and falling prices, letting you find the perfect opportunity. So if you think the market's going up, you buy. If you think it's going down, then you can sell short. Not only is spread betting exempt from capital gains tax, but it's also commission-free. All you pay is the spread. With us, you're not alone. You're part of a wide community of traders that you can learn from. We've got the experts, the tools, and extensive educational resources to help you on your journey. If you're not quite ready to trade with real money, you can always give it a go on a demo account. Open an account today, join the conversation, and be inspired to make moves.
Oh, wasn't that brilliant? We will carry on with part 2 of that interview later on this week, but just an absolute pleasure to talk to Bat as it is to talk to Axel. How are you, sir?
All right, thanks, Rich. You?
Nice bank holiday?
Certainly, yeah.
Yeah.
It's always nice to have 3 days. Isn't it?
Yeah, that was it.
Even though the markets were open yesterday, so.
That's right.
Except in the UK.
Had to just keep a little eye on things, didn't you? Now, if you want to sign up to come along and see Bat in person and Mr. Sosnoff, then we've popped that link in the chat there again. And a reminder, there you go. So just go down to sign up there. That'll be myself, Bat, and Tom Sosnoff on stage Friday the June 20th from 6 p.m. Drinks are on me, and the ticket is free as well, so you got no arguments. Right, we're going to have a quick look. Before we get on to Trade of the Week, Axel, I've got a special request for you to look at the S&P 500 for me, please, because that is where most of my positions are. And I'm intrigued to see what you think in technical land.
Well, first of all, I have to say that so far I've been wrong on my view, as we saw in Trade of the Week of last week. But my view is still that we're going to retest the lows. And it's not just because of technicals, but also fundamentally, I just can't see it not being at least retested.
Completely agree.
But so far, we've climbed the wall of fear, as you say. We've ground higher. And if you look at the DAX index, I mean, it's nearly making new all-time record highs, I think within 2% or so of its all-time record high. So if you look at the S&P, what I am seeing, but as I say, I might be completely wrong on this. So, well,
that makes
don't trade it.
Then.
But I don't think we're the only ones, to be honest. I think a lot of hedge funds are still short. But what I see here is a decline. You can see a very sharp decline here. And then since then, we've had this, what could be construed as an ABC Elliott wave correction. That's just a corrective 3-wave move against the overall trend, which is now down.
Okay.
And if that is indeed a zigzag, if you take the distance from down here to this high here, when Trump went, oh, actually, let's just postpone the tariffs for 90 days, and take that distance to the low and project it upwards, that's more or less where we headed to last week. So potentially, and you can also see this high from last week was within this previous distribution here, that resistance area. So for me, the line in the sand is still the late March high. If we go above here, I'm most likely wrong on my view, and we're just going to have a V-shaped reversal like we did for COVID and the pandemic.
Right.
But if that is not the case, and what we're seeing the beginnings of at the moment is that we could now start to grind back down again, retest that uptrend line, and if we fall through there, and for me, most importantly, through the late April low here on the 30s.
Where is that?
That is 5,000 on the spread here. It's 5,433 on the daily financial bet.
Okay.
But if that gets taken out, for me, that could be just an ABC correction and we go down again. So I'm still thinking that we're going to have a retest. I don't think it's going to a straight line up, but that's my view. I might be wrong on it. Technically speaking, I am probably wrong on it if we close on a weekly basis above the late March highs. As long as we don't, that scenario is for me still in play.
Okay, so it's 5,430 and 5,800, is that?
Yeah, it's just about,
Okay.
I think 5,787 it was, but yeah, it's basically 5,800.
I'm short quite a lot of calls around that level at the 5,800. So that's where I'm going to have to decide whether you know, I'm wrong as well. If we get up there, I'm quite happy to let it run if we get up there. But as you say, if we break through it, then clearly there's something different at play, isn't there?
Unless it's a false breakout, because, you know, we've seen that before, where technical levels get taken out. Everybody thinks, oh, okay, this is it, really. We're wrong. And then suddenly 2 weeks later, we do to actually.
Oh, dear.
But even then, look, I mean, look at the resistance area. Can you see here? You've got that whole area going back to, I believe, November of last year. All these lows tie in with the high seen at the end of March. There's no surprise we made that high there. So I'd be very surprised if we can break through that whole area. And that's slightly higher. I mean, if you want to really, really give yourself room, but that's a long way away.
Yeah.
You're talking 5,900. But yeah. But basically, I'd be very surprised if we just go through here. And you can also see the decline was much faster than the advance we saw over the last couple of weeks. Obviously, we've gone up for 4 weeks in a row now, more or less, European markets, for example, but we are losing upside momentum. So I'm still holding on to, clutching to my negative view at the moment. But
Wonderful. Good. Music to my ears. Very excited for Trade of the Week, so I'm going to leave you for that. And if you've got questions for Axel, as I have just had, I could probably come up with another 10 myself. But if you've got questions, drop them into the comments section there. And Axel will address them in Technically Speaking, coming right up after Trade of the Week. I'll see you tomorrow.
Tasty Live's godfather of options, Tom Sosnoff, is grabbing his passport and taking this show international. He'll be joined by IG's Rich McDonald in London and Milan, along with special guests at each stop for an evening of live trading. It's fun, challenging and moves as fast as the market. Doors open at 5, with trading starting at 6. Come early and have a pint or glass of vino with the boys. It's totally free, but space is limited. Register at tastylive.com/events. Options just got molto interessante.
Do you like the sound of tax-free trading? Well, that's exactly what spread betting enables you to do. This tax-free way of trading lets you speculate on the price of over 17,000 financial instruments, like shares, indices, forex, and commodities, without actually owning them. With spread betting, you can benefit from both rising and falling prices, letting you find the perfect opportunity. So if you think the market's going up, you buy. If you think it's going down, then you can sell short. Not only is spread betting exempt from capital gains tax, but it's also commission free. All you pay is the spread. With us, you're not alone. You're part of a wide community of traders that you can learn from. We've got the experts, the tools, and extensive educational resources to help you on your journey. If you're not quite ready to trade with real money, you can always give it a go on a demo account. Open an account today, join the conversation, and be inspired to make moves.
Bring me the next shiny new thing. Bring me the next shiny new thing.
hello and welcome to Trade of the Week on Tuesday, the 6th of May 2025. And unfortunately for me, or for you actually, we're already well on our way for this new trade. And if you look at it, it's going short dollar yen. And for those of you who are subscribers to the premium daily technical analysis FX email that I send out, we're already short at 144 yen here. and we're coming off. So ideally, that's what I'd like to be short at. We also tried last week to go short at 146 yen, but didn't quite manage to reach that. But can you see here, what we're seeing is basically a continuation of the downtrend. And what I believe is going on here is similar to what we saw in March, where we had this A, B, C zigzag correction in Elliott wave terms, which is just a three-legged correction of the downtrend and to the downtrend, and then the downtrend continued. And I think the same thing is happening here again. So A, B, C, then we got a sell signal here, and now we're heading back down again. So that reason, technically speaking, for me is enough to go short dollar yen. I do think that we're going to fall through the low we saw in April longer term, and we could be heading towards 135 or even lower than that. You've got the low going back to September 2024. That comes in at 139.58, and that's basically more or less where we held in April. But if we take both of these out, then you can see here, we go back to levels last traded in July of 2023 between 138 and 137.50. So I believe that that downtrend is going to continue. I like trading in the direction of the overall trend anyway. So for me, for this week's trade of the week, we are short dollar yen. But let's look at last week's, because basically I had a similar pattern on the DAX 40 contract, and I got that horribly wrong. As you can see here, we went up, down, and up. And I thought this whole resistance area here, going back to the March lows and February lows, would cap the upside. And I was completely wrong. And our stop loss was above, I believe, the early April high. So we got stopped out here. Yes, I mean, the DAX, as you can see, is very close to making a new all-time record high. I shouldn't have gone short the strongest market, because the DAX has actually outperformed the S&P or the NASDAQ. I should have actually looked at the same pattern on the NASDAQ maybe and gone short that instead. So we got this one wrong, and we lost 2% of our capital hypothetically on that trade, having been long from down here, but from here actually, from this area. For those of you who stayed long, well done. And yeah, I mean, we are testing really important resistance at the moment, but maybe we're going to come off it short term. Coming back to trade of the week, I would like to go short dollar yen for technical reasons, around current levels, or around ideally 144 yen, with a stop loss above 146 yen, last week's high, and a downside target, let's say around 138 yen. Welcome back, and let's do Technically Speaking now, where you can ask your questions and I'll answer these from a technical perspective, or from what I happen to know about the markets, or actually not know about the markets, because I honestly firmly believe, as last week's trade of the week showed, that even if you've got somebody like the chair of the US Fed, Jerome Powell, not knowing what's going to happen tomorrow, well, I'm certainly not that person who is going to pretend that I do know what I'm doing. All I can do is get the odds in my favor. That's what we're trying to do when we trade. We try to get high probability, low risk opportunities to go with the overall trend, or against the trend in some cases. And that's basically what you try to do, to get on average more winners than losers, and hopefully also make bigger profits when you're right than when you're wrong, when you're losing. So the first question is, with the current volatility, is it possible that we can make a new high in US markets before we actually top out, because of all the US Trump tariff phenomenon impacting perhaps negatively not just US inflation, but also the US economy with regards to the labor market and things like that, and unemployment? Because for now, the data has been looking back, and the data has been quite good. Inflation isn't so high, and so far the labor market, as we saw with non-farm payrolls last week, is very solid in the US still. But that might change in the future. But the question is, I don't know, anything's possible. If you look at the markets such as the German DAX index, which I just showed on Trade of the Week, that may well make a new all-time record high before it turns lower, if it does turn lower. US markets, I'd be very surprised if we do, because it does look to me as if we're sort of grinding higher, but the down moves we saw previously were quite sharp. But again, as I said before, if we go above the late March highs on a weekly chart closing basis, then my view is probably incorrect. So you don't have to wait from a stop loss perspective to make a new record high before you get out of your shorts if you're still short. Now, do I factor in forex in my technical analysis at all? I look at intermarket relations. Of course, I will look at interest rates. I will look at FX. I will look at commodities, anything that can influence the market, and I would look at the correlation between these. But I won't base my analysis on a given asset class by looking at the other ones. So no, in that respect, what I do, example, let's just look at dollar yen where we had our trade of the week. If you go back to my chart, we can see here that what I'm trying to do is catch the trend when there is a correction against that trend. So what I'm trying to do ideally is when I have a trend, any movement against it, I then go short again in the direction of the trend with relatively tight stop losses. Here, for example, again, or here, stop here, and now short ideally here, stop here, and then we'll see how far down we go. So that I won't base on, the US dollar in general. If I look at the US dollar index, for example, or I won't look at gold or anything like that, because I believe that everything's already priced into the price itself. So the market that you're analyzing, if you understand the price action itself, then you can also infer a lot of information from that alone. Now you can see here, that's the US dollar index. So that's the US dollar basket. And you can see that we've had a very sharp decline in the US dollar, which is, by the way, what President Trump always wanted to have happen. He wanted the US dollar to decline so that US exports would become more competitive, manufacturing, be able to export more out of the US, and that foreign countries from the US perspective could buy US treasuries again. And last week we saw, for example, China buying US treasuries, having probably sold quite a few like Japan in the previous weeks. So it's really interesting to see what's going on fundamentally. But technically what we can see here is that we dipped below this key support area. We've had all the lows going back to January of 2023. And right now we're trying to bounce back from that low. But as we can see here, because of inverse polarity, that previous support is now likely to act as a resistance area. So for me, even if we see a short-term bounce in the US dollar against currency pairs in general, we would have to rise above all these previous lows here. Basically, we would have to close on a weekly closing basis on the US dollar basket above 100.50. That's the 30th of January low, for us to see a reversal. So unless that happens, it's quite possible that the US dollar is going to slide further, in which case we could have as a target the 95 area, which we hit back in 2020 and also in, in 2020 twice. Excuse me. Sorry about that. What other questions do we have? Does the S&P reaction remind you of how the index reacted to the Russian invasion of Ukraine? Stocks rallied the following before heading back lower. It does remind me, but I mean, as I often say, history repeats itself, but it doesn't. It rhymes, but it doesn't necessarily repeat itself one for one. So, for me, I still expect corporate earnings, to come in worse than expected. We had really good earnings actually compared to what we thought they were going to be over the last few weeks. Earnings season's coming to an end now. Yes, we still have NVIDIA out, I believe, but that's sort of the last big ones. And then basically next earnings season, we will see the impact of tariffs much more clearly manifest themselves. We will see the same with regards to inflation, not just in the US, but globally, and also the employment data in the US and in general growth already, global growth. And at the moment, what we've seen is uncertainty in the markets. Institutions can't plan, corporates can't plan. That's not good for sentiment. It will lead, in my opinion, to layoffs in the US. If you look at bankruptcies, I think they're a 14-year high in the US. All of that is not conducive to making a new bull market, in my opinion, especially at the time where the Fed, we'll see probably this week, won't cut rates just now. So that's my view, but maybe I'm just talking my book, which is why I'm looking at the charts. And the charts are telling me we are testing resistance area on all of these markets. When I look at the S&P, the NASDAQ, other ones. I mean, let's look at the NASDAQ. Can you see here, same pattern, ABC, testing resistance. Again, if we go above the LH March highs, maybe I'm wrong. If you look at the FTSE 100, can you see here, this is a 5-minute chart, which is why it looks completely strange, but can you see here, we've rallied. The FTSE is actually always an outperformer, tends to be in markets which come down. As you can see, it's done pretty well. It's trading back at all these previous lows here, going back to, I think, February and March, and that's now acting as resistance. So, yes, I mean, we're testing resistance. We have to see whether that resistance gets broken through or not. That, for me, is the big story that we need to look at from a technical perspective. Gold up another 50. Well, gold is the inverse trade, isn't it? I mean, look at gold. Gold came off last week when European and US equity markets went higher. So the flight to safety investments into gold, basically what we saw is the flip side. The Chinese, for example, Chinese central bank also selling some gold, having bought it for, over 1.5, 2 years now. So we saw some selling. Maybe that was just profit taking at these elevated levels. And now what we're seeing, and that would tie in to my view, this could be an A, B, C correction in an uptrend. So here we had the market come down, go back up again, down. If that is the case, I would expect a new high to be made above the all-time high at $3,500 per troy ounce. And right now, it really looks as if we're heading for that, because you can see here yesterday with a sharp up move in gold, and that up move seems to continue. If you're long gold short term, where's your stop loss? The last relative low. That's last week's low at 3,902. That also ties in with the previous low, the mid-April low here. So I like a cluster of previous lows and highs to define where my resistance, my support is. If you're long from a longer term perspective, the trend, as I've been saying for the last few weeks, is still very healthy, and the trend is your friend. So let it run. We may well go up. I've got targets at $3,755 per troy ounce, a Fibonacci extension target going back many, many decades. And I wouldn't be surprised if we reach that in the coming months. Other questions. Overview of gold, I think I've just covered that. Do I think that liquidity is important? Yes, of course, liquidity is very important. Basically, if you have markets falling in very high volume and you have a lot of volatility, what can happen? And that's what happened at times at the very beginning when Donald Trump started to say that he also wanted to replace Jerome Powell, the Fed chair. At that point, there was a very grave danger, which a lot of people didn't realize, that liquidity would dry up because bond markets went higher, and basically when you've got bond yields rallying very, very quickly, it can get quite dodgy for the financial system because it puts a lot of pressure on it, and liquidity can very quickly dry up. Now, we avoided that, and I think that's also why President Trump, although he would never admit to that, I guess, basically backtracked a few days later and said, oh, no, he never intended to fire Jerome Powell, having said the opposite just a few days before. But basically, he was probably told that he has to be very careful because the financial system could be under pressure. And once liquidity dries up, we saw that in 2008, it can have very negative impacts on the economy and on the financial system in general. But yes, liquidity does play a major part in these markets. What also plays a major part is volume and volatility. And if you look at the volume at the moment, volumes have been all right. But if you look at the volatility, let's look at the S&P 500. Can you see here as the daily chart or the daily candles become smaller? So volatility is sort of coming out. We had one last push higher here on Friday. And it'll be interesting to see from a technical perspective whether we can fall through Friday's low. Why? Because technically, if you have a high volatility move from a base, as was Friday's low, and then you subsequently come and fall below that low and close below it, that negates that up move. And it could be the indication that the market is in the process of turning. But we're not there yet, so you can't just sort of talk your book. But right now we're still in uptrend, but you can see here the volatility is less so than it was at the beginning of April, for example. And if you look at currencies, we see the same phenomenon. Euro dollar, for example, can you see here over the last week what has happened? Well, here can you see volatility has really, really declined. Can you see how all these candles become really, really small here? And beforehand they were much bigger. So right now, what is this telling us? Well, it's telling us that euro dollar investors or traders in euro dollar don't know what the next move is going to be. So they're waiting it out. They see where the next move is. Are we going to fall below last week's low? In which case we could also fall through my 30-day uptrend, basically, which is the 30-day moving average, which I like because can you see it acted quite often as support or close to it as support. So we're back again there. And if we fall through here, we might fall to the next high, which is the 3rd of April high, that high here. But if we don't, this might also be an ABC correction, a shortened one. But if that is the case, as long as we hold above last Thursday's low, which was made at 112.66, then we may actually retest the highs on euro dollar and go back up towards 116 or so. So we'll see, but the market will tell us. And right now, traders are quite cautious and they're waiting it out and they want to see what happens here. Now, I've been asked to look at the pullback in Palantir. Let's just do that. Let's look at Palantir and see what we're seeing here. Now, this is an all sessions chart. And, well, didn't we just talk about resistance and support? What have we seen here on this daily chart? Well, basically, Palantir on Monday retested this previous high here, the February 25th high, which I believe was an all-time high. Let me just double check here that I'm not talking rubbish. That is correct. So we made a new all-time high, which is really positive, isn't it? But, and this is the big but, we actually then not only closed below the previous all-time high, which was made back in February, but we reversed and closed below the previous day's low, which was made on Friday, the 2nd of May. That is negative in the short term because it's called a bearish engulfing pattern if you have the open above the previous day's candle close, which is not the case here, but it's still a bearish reversal pattern. And in that bearish reversal pattern, if you just look at the body, the red area here, you can see that within one day, on the day we made a new all-time high, we actually took out the previous days, the day before that, and the day before that. All of these bodies, 4 days bodies, which were positive on 3 days in one day. That's not positive. That tells you that short term, at least the top is in place. So this could be the beginning of a pullback, which could actually be quite a bit sharper than what we've seen so far. If we manage to hold above yesterday's low today on a daily chart closing basis, maybe that was it. And maybe because the low from last Wednesday was slightly lower than that low, maybe you can put your stop loss below there if you're long and if you're worried, if you're long short term. If you're long term, I mean, you're still in an uptrend. Yes, you're testing the highs, but the uptrend's still intact and Palantir is still looking fine. So don't jump the gun and say, well, this is a double top. It might become a double top, but it will only be if we fall through the 7th of April low. If that's too far away for you, well, have a tighter stop. As I said, have it at the 30th of April low. That's your last reaction low. If you go below there, we may actually fall further and retest the middle of March high, the end of March high. So that's another area, technically speaking. But don't just say, oh, this is a double top. But if you do think it's a double top, if you want to jump the gun, if you want to trade against the trend, you know where your stop is. It's above yesterday's high. And if we go above there, I would probably make it a stop and reverse order. You then actually go long again because it's trading all-time highs and the odds are greater for it to continue to make all-time highs than to top out here big time. Just one note on where we made our low back on the 7th of April, a Trump-induced low, as you know. Can you see here? That was exactly more or less where we had the January low. So that acted as support and then reversed to the upside. So short term, we might see a pullback. Longer term, we're still in uptrend here, and medium term, perhaps we're in a phase now where we might be trading sideways for a while. Now, I'm being asked to do a Fibonacci tutorial. We can do that, but because we've got 2 minutes left today, let's do that next week. Let's do a proper Fibonacci tutorial, and I'll show you how you can use Fibonacci extensions, for example, to see where you can see markets go in the future when they're trading at all-time highs or all-time lows. That's something very useful to have in your toolbox from a technical perspective, and it can work wonders. So it is something that I do use all the time when there are new all-time highs or lows being made, and we'll look at that next week. The question here I've also got from Arthur is, are liquidity and volume always interdependent? They tend to be, but they don't have to be. You can have high volatility days with very little volume, for example, on a bank holiday when the UK is shut and the other markets are open, or when the US is shut and we are open in the UK. Then on those days, if some stop levels get triggered and hedge fund have to execute, for example, you could see a lot of volatility, but actually not that much volume going through it. So on those days, and also on public holidays, some Jewish holidays, for example, or Christmas, that Christmas period, between Christmas and New Year, Christian holidays, you do have a low volatility. You can have days of high volatility in a low volume environment because most people are on holidays, so they're trading less volume. So it can happen, but most of the time, for example, just a few weeks ago, at the beginning of April, we had a lot of volatility and a lot of volume also going through the market, huge amounts of volume with people buying and selling stocks. So most of the time that tends to be the case. On that note, it's 10 o'clock and it's time for me to say goodbye, and I'll see you next week, hopefully, when we will talk about Fibonacci extensions. Goodbye.